Hey guys, and welcome back to the Indie Game Culture Podcast. You're back with Melika, back with JT, and back with myself, Cal. We are going to be talking once again about indie games on the radar, indie games in the right now that we're playing, and we'll be also doing our big discussion. This time we'll be doing something a little bit more interactive and debatable, and it's going to get a bit messy. But before all of that, how is everyone?
I'm all good.
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad either. My week has been pretty busy. I'm going to say it now because I can't say it during the rest of the podcast, but my week has been busy with Sea of Stars because we've got an early code for that. And while I can't give any opinions on it, I have spent a lot of time with it, and I do not regret spending all that time on it, and I'll say that much, and that's all I can say. But it is eaten up so much of my time to the point where I'm only going to be bringing along a handful of indie games. And you know how I like to bring on way too many?
You do. It's your thing. It's what you're known for.
That's what I do, but I can't do that this time.
When's the embargo for Sea of Stars? Is it 29th when it releases?
29th when it releases, as far as I know. And we will be just pushing out all the guides, because I've been doing those. And I haven't done this in a little while, so all that meticulous note-taking, because you can't just go and read someone else's guide to remind yourself. Oh, it's a thing.
Oh yeah. Whenever I'm like making a guide for it, it's like literally like I've got my phone notes app every few like minutes, just writing something new.
And the worst thing is you don't actually know what things are relevant to the point they need to be. You just write down everything, and
you start up thinking anything that could possibly be relevant. You start taking notes on it and sort of narrow it down later on. It's time consuming. I remember one time I wrote a Spiritfarer guide. It was about 8 hours of note taking and then 4 hours of typing up. It was brutal. And I had to do it straight away because you need to get in there first to get in the Google rankings. So,
and you'll forget. And if you forget,
exactly.
You're done.
Exactly. It was pretty brutal.
I always just try to record all of the footage I think is pertinent, but then it means I can end up recording 5 or 6 hours of useless footage sometimes. I'm like, oh, I didn't need this.
It happens. It happens. And you know what? I can say this because the developer said it as well. I didn't look this up. I thought it was going to be quite a short game. It just keeps going and going and going.
When I was watching the trailer, I reckoned it probably about 7 or 8 hours. It looks quite short, but
no, you're talking 40 hours. Well, 35 hours.
That's crazy.
It's incredible.
There's a lot there, but I appreciate it all the same.
Yeah. No, I'm excited because it's going to be a Game Pass day one. So anyway, I'll talk about it more in my coming soon games. So.
Yeah, you can do that. I'll just kind of sit there quietly and go, I wonder if that will happen or not. What about you guys? What have you been up to this week?
I've been quite busy, actually. Just lots of things going on in the real life. I haven't had much time to play games. It was a very last minute. So my husband got won tickets to the Xbox event that's happening next week in Cologne. I said next week. No, it's in 2 days in Cologne. And so it was a case of hastily booking last minute tickets for far more than I feel comfortable spending plane tickets on. But an opportunity like that, can't pass it up. Because I have opportunity to play games ahead of their release. And the coolest thing is they've got their they're making a big deal of their Idea Xbox, which is their indie game sort of offshoot, and they're planning to have loads of developer booths there and things. And yeah, it's going to be a really awesome opportunity. So keep your eyes on the Indie Game Culture website over the next couple of weeks. I'm pumping out loads of content, hopefully developer interviews if I can. I'm taking my video camera, so we'll have to wait and see, but definitely previews of the games, what to expect, and yeah, just general what an indie game expo thing is to experience. You're gonna get a nice fun opinion piece as well.
This is an IGC exclusive now.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
By the time this gets edited, it might not be, but at the same time it is.
I'm hoping to get as much content for you guys as possible. It should be really, really fun.
Oh man, I can't wait.
And I've also been doing climbing. I'm doing because I don't know if you guys remember, but I had a terrible fear of heights. And so I was never able to go up on the 10-meter wall. I was always on indoor on the bouldering wall. But I've been really pushing myself on the 10-meter wall. And I'm really close to doing a 6A route. And I know the numbers mean nothing, but it's 3 levels above what I've done before. So it's a huge jump for me. And I'm literally 2 meters off the top now. I'm getting so close. Oh, and it's really, it's just so exciting to see myself push past the barriers that I couldn't do before. Each session, I'm getting further and further and further. And that's one of the things I love about climbing, is because you've got so many holes, you can really see exactly your progress. yeah, it's just really, really fun to just finally get the move that you've been stuck on for a couple of sessions. And yeah, it's been a really big rush. I'm quite proud of how well I've been doing on that. It's been going really well.
We all love some incremental gains.
Yeah, no, it's I really love my climbing.
Oh gosh, that's fantastic. Like I always get like, I don't know, I'm always terrified of bouldering more so than like the rope climbing. Like when you're tied in, because bouldering is like, oh, what if I like get to the top and then I don't have enough energy to get down? It's like I don't want to fall that way.
Yeah, no, my local was quite small. It's only about 3 meters. The 4-meter ones are a bit scarier on the bouldering, but like I know the mats are soft. I think when I first started bouldering, I was scared of it, but then I just got so used to falling because there was this one route I could not make the last move, and I fell like 60, 70 times, and I'm like a textbook faller now. Like I know I know exactly how to land to avoid any injury, so I'm very good at just like if I fall, I fall, and I'm not as scared from that anymore.
Learning to fall is a big part of those.
It is like that. That's the thing. Like the instructors say that while they're better climbers than me, they reckon I'm the best faller there. So make of that what you will.
I like that. Oh, that reminds me as well. I had booked a thing for Ella's birthday. Now I got our wires crossed a little bit. She said to me she wanted to go on a zip line course. And I thought, okay, I'll book this one that's near us, and it's a treetop adventure course with a zip line, and she was mildly upset and a bit scared.
Oh so, no, yeah, those kind of things are pretty scary.
Those take you up fairly high.
Yeah, we're talking 70-foot treetops. So,
oh boy,
yeah. And I'm not a big fan of heights either, but I was going to put myself out there.
Just go for it. Absolutely, go for it.
We'll see how it goes.
She might end up loving it. Might be a newfound experience for her.
If I don't attend the podcast in 2 weeks, it's because I'm
murdered. She just clings onto you at the top and you both love it to your death.
Yeah, we'll be rooting for you, Callum.
I'm glad to hear it.
How about you, JT? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I've been fairly busy playing games. I was sick for a little bit, and then I got better, so I've been feeling really good and just been making the most of it. Yeah, I don't know. Are we talking about games right now, or are we?
You can briefly explain.
Yeah, I can have a brief jump in. Go for it.
Yeah. I've played a lot of the artsy games that we mentioned last time, like A Short Hike, GRIS, and Storm Boy, and it was very fun. But I was really like, God, I loved A Short Hike. But then, like, I got to the top, and I realized, like, oh, I thought I had, like, 2 more hours of gameplay. But then I finished the game. I was like, what?
Get all the achievements. Get all the achievements. There's so many different quests you can do in A Short Hike.
Oh, there are. I really love the a boat mini game where you take the boat on an adventure, and the one kid, like, built a ramp, and then it breaks the boat, and they're both freaking out. I was like, we broke the boat. What do we do? And God, that was so much fun.
Yeah. So last time we were talking about what's it called, the beach stick ball, and how hard it was to get the 30. I managed to get a 98.
Nice.
Which is ridiculous.
And I took the proof because I knew they wouldn't believe me, so I took a screenshot and I sent it to them as my proof, so they can vouch. I legit got a 98 on beach stick ball.
Oh, should I pull it up?
Cal just shaking his head in anger.
The RNG in that game is mental, so the fact that you got 90 is so good.
I could have got more because it was getting to the point I was like, I'm pretty sure I must have hit 30 by now. I was like, is this going? I was like, I just gave up. I was like, this is done. I'm done. I'm not spending my whole night hitting this ball. So I was so tired at this point, and it was like my brain went onto autopilot. I wasn't thinking. I was just moving, and I was like, I would stay here all night. I just need to just get the achievement and move on.
You were in a flow state. These things happen.
I was. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened.
Like, I hate to burst your bubble, but it said 94.
Oh, 94. Close enough. Close enough. I knew it was 90-something.
Fudging the numbers.
I'm sorry, Cal. How much is your high score?
30-something. That's all you need.
Oh, my gosh. Oh.
But yeah, before we talk more and more about games, we should probably start the session or the section.
Yeah, start the section.
Indies that we been playing. Is the section. So we'll be jumping in there. JT, why don't you go first?
Carry on.
Then your short hike talk.
Yeah, well, I really loved The Short Hike. It really was a very calming, relaxing game to play. I thought all of the characters were really well written. Like, the humor was very on point, and
very good, but funny. Yeah.
it was really worth like going out and doing all the extra side activities. It's like there's all like a bunch of good content that left me really warm and happy. I know we talked about it last stream. It's like how you play the game is like it's you're collecting feathers to climb to the top of the mountain, and with each feather you can do a little like another boost of air, and you can glide, and you can even just like rock climb too.
Climb higher.
Yeah. And yeah, I fell in love with some of the interactions. Like there's a bit in the very beginning where there's the tutorial guy. So like, all right, if you need to fly, like do this, and he tells you a couple of times, and they're respectful. It's like, oh sure, well you do this, and they get striking. It's like, no, you do this, and it's like, no, I'm done. I'm not giving you.
It runs off. It's like, you haven't learned it right now. You're never gonna learn it. Just runs off. It's so funny.
It's the best thing.
Oh,
There's also another one where like there's a quest where you're collecting shells for the child, and actually,
oh yeah, she steals my shells and claims them as her own. It's like, how dare you?
it's such a good joke. Just like they did it as like, oh yeah, you get nothing. Are you kidding me? But
on the subject of that and a short hike, it seems like everyone around me has started playing a short hike through me playing it. So Ella played it as well. And speaking of the seashell kid, she was furious with that interaction to the point where she wanted to like find some way to like bring combat into the game, and she found the stick obviously and wanted to play beach stick ball.
Just like whack her. Yeah. No, I was pretty mad.
oh my gosh! But...
What I am concerned about is that you liked the boating. Oh, but
no, the boating control's horrible. I hate the boating so much.
Oh,
I suppose it depends on did you go for like the whole 45 seconds to finish the
I barely
race?
got in under 2 minutes.
And you enjoyed doing that? That's crazy.
I mean, it was a challenge. It's like, oh, I'm just about to do it.
Oh, it sure was a challenge, but not because like
yeah, it's like it's a challenge because the controls
Oh
are so inconsistent.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
I'll confess, I spent I think 5 or 6 loops just going around the mountain or the area just because I thought like, oh, that's probably it. There isn't a mini game, and they said like, oh, do you want to do a race? And I was like, by that point, I like almost mastered like the driving controls. I was like, oh, I can do it.
You felt ready.
Yes, but
that's fair.
I was like bumping into rocks, struggling to hit the things. It's horrid trying to control that thing.
It just you were turning one way and you're like, okay, well that's how you turn, and then it would just
change
invert for no reason.
It's like it's so inconsistent.
You have to be very careful. It's like, oh no, and yeah.
I think it's like as soon as you hit like 90 degrees, it decides right time to change the controls on themselves. It's so stupid.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Otherwise, lovely.
Yeah, it's like literally everything in the game is great except for that stupid boat.
Oh, I like that scene. I got over the boat controls and I was like, oh, this is one of the better parts of the game. Oh shucks, but I don't know, it was such a good time. And like you mentioned with beach stick ball, that God, that was a fun mini game. I want to see that again. I know it's just volleyball, but like tennis
with a stick.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I ended up playing the other 2 games you mentioned, GRIS and Stormboy.
What did you think of Stormboy? Did you cry?
Yeah, a little bit at the end.
Yeah.
I was doing it on stream, and there's a bit. Oh god, there was a bit where you had to collect like 100 of the seashells, and it's like or it's like you had to collect I don't know, some like kind of oyster thing. That was one of the mini games, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do this. And then one of the people in chat like donated like a couple of bits. I was like, fine, I'll do it all. And that was frustrating. And also I did spend quite a bit of time.
Calming. It immerses you into the beachness of it all.
It was really sweet. I loved the story. It was fairly short and straightforward.
Yeah, about an hour.
I'll say I did love feeding the pelicans, like the baby pelicans.
Yeah, I love doing that. Did you do the thing where you just feed one and make the others angry?
Yes, and I got the achievement for that. I was like, oh,
yeah.
That felt good.
That was so funny. The birds are like, excuse me, where's my fish?
Yeah, where's my fish?
We just look at you in such anger.
Yeah. Gosh, that gun punch at the end, like just the emotional heartbreak. It was brutal.
My heart.
It do get you.
But yeah, I got it on sale, so it was like only maybe $1.50 or something. So I was like, oh, it's fairly worth it. But it was a very short experience, so I would.
It's also a great one for achievement hunters because you can get them all so easy.
As you know, I got mine in 19 minutes.
All right. Oh, but yeah, I had a good time with that. And like GRIS, when I played through that was an amazing experience. I really loved that. And that also, well, the emotional heartbreak at the end, that really got me there too.
Yeah, I can jump in on that one because obviously I played it last time, but I hadn't finished it, and I was being a little bit reductive of it because I was viewing it just as like a very artsy platformer and wasn't really paying attention to what was going on around me. But because of like the fact that I'm achievement hunting and going back and doing the chapters over again and doing all the little footery things, I kind of got the whole concept of going through the 5 stages of grief and doing it in a really like artsy way where it can seem a little bit abstract, but when you put it all together, it's really touching. And that bit at the end where you kind of realize, oh, that's what's happening. It's really sad.
Oh.
But it kind of it showcases the 5 stages and everything so succinctly. And the whole expression through color where you're bringing color back to the world because it was stripped away because of what happened at the start of the game, and you make sense of that. Yeah, but in a very different way. Definitely a lot more sinister, well, not even sinister themes, just like sad themes.
Yeah.
I
do want to play GRIS at some point.
Yeah, luckily I had a friend who was that was one of her favorite games, and also played them on stream too. And she just kept explaining like, oh, these are like the ways of uncontrollable anger, or this or that. And I'd forgotten what the 5 stages of grief. I just realized how similar the names sound, Grease and Griff. Great, no.
You'll get there.
Yeah. Anyways, it was nice to have like little explanation as I was playing through it. It was like, oh, so like that's what that's supposed to represent. And then, obviously the very end was so touching. I was like, oh, I could sing again, and it was very sad. But and then it just came to an end, and I was like, oh, well, it's over.
It's quite abrupt at the end.
Yeah, I just like it's coming to a point, and then it just ends. And I thought it was sweet. It's like, all right, that was. I wasn't expecting it to just like cut to credits. Okay, we're done.
Yeah, but it does this thing where like it should end, and then there's an extra like 30 seconds where it makes you walk again and up an area, and then it ends. It didn't need to do that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, what's at the top? I want to know what's at the top, and then
I didn't quite understand why that extra 30 seconds was added, because it was a nice cutting point after you've learned to sing, you've brought all of the things together, and then it was like, oh, you need to do this little chore at the end. It's silly, but it's such a good platformer, even if you look at it just as a puzzle platformer, because there's so many things that they do mechanically that blend well with the narrative thing they're trying to do to represent what's going on. So take the first stage, which is like the anger section, where you get your heavy ability, which is essentially your ability to just kind of break things and smash things. And that essentially turns you into this big heavy cube, which allows you to like walk through sandstorms and not get beat up, or it allows you to just smash through floors and stuff. And it represents what you're trying to convey story-wise really well. And it's also really clever as a mechanic. And that just keeps going throughout.
Also, it's just hilarious seeing yourself turn into a box, I thought. Just like, okay, now I'm a square.
That too.
Yeah.
Oh, there was this game I used to play when I was a kid, like a Flash game. You're like a square, like doing platformy puzzles and stuff, and you have to like
Super Meat Boy.
No. It was like one of those sort of physics-based ones, and you had to like basically at the start of the level you like place boxes in like where you wanted them to be, so you'd be able to move. Like you have like a limited number of boxes you could place, and you have to like try and put them in the exact right places so that you could get to the end as a square or something like that. And there were other levels where you were a circle, and yeah.
That's really cool. That actually works really well later, where like you turn into like a stackable crate and you can jump on yourself. And,
brilliant.
Yeah,
that's right.
I thought that was a really clever puzzle. It's like, oh, like that's the solution. That's very smart.
Every single puzzle was very well implemented. I think they didn't stretch it to the point where they were really milking the ideas dry. They'd done the thing, they'd done it well, you moved on to the next bit. And it's only like 4 hours, I would say, if you play it from start to finish and you're not really meticulous about what you want to do, which I wasn't the first time around, which was nice because I didn't have to focus on it and I got the whole gist of the story and got to enjoy it. And then I regretted it afterwards because I had to go through all the chapter selects and get all the things. And I was like, I basically played it like 2.5 times. So that was my own fault. But you know what? It made it a richer experience because I got to go back and do the things again. And yeah I liked it.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad I played through all those games. I was like, oh, that was a good recommendation from the podcast. So yeah, it was a good artsy time. And then after that, I got to play through Holocure, which I don't know if you two have heard of it. It's a kind of
Holocure.
Yeah, it's a fairly popular kind of Vampire Survivors-ish clone, but it's with VTubers and anime pop star stuff, and it's very cute and adorable, and I just think it's a better version of Vampire Survivors, and I should probably explain for those who don't know.
It does look pretty cute.
Yeah, it's for those of you that don't know, Vampire Survivors is a bullet hell survival thing where there's no buttons or shooting. I mean, there is, but like you're just controlling a character, and that's like almost everything you do. And I liked the game, but I just got bored of it after a while, and the visuals were pretty dull, I thought. So I thought like, oh, this game could use like a great visual overhaul, and then it would work. And then Holocure came out, and it's free, and it had like a bunch of like side mini games like fishing and stuff that had a really addictive DDR element.
Fishing mini games are like the bread and butter of a good indie.
And I thought it was a fairly good fishing mini game. It's the way it works is you do a small bit of DDR or Dance Dance Revolution where you have to press like right key, up key, spacebar, and it gets harder the further you get, and like it goes faster and stuff. And at the very end, it's just like you're manually like pushing buttons, and if you lose your combo, then it puts you all the way back to the start, so you're not catching as many fish. It's not as rewarding. So it gets to the point where like you have a 60+ combo and you lose and you freak out. It's like, no, all of my hard work. But
it's good that they've implemented other things into the Vampire Survivors kind of format, because I think it's already very tired.
Yeah.
People have realized, oh, that's a way that we can make money because it's really popular, but it's already been done and people are already kind of done with it.
Right.
It's one of those kind of throwaway genres that people really want to take off, but I don't see it lasting. I think Vampire Survivors is it, and that's the way it'll stay.
Yeah.
But it's good that there's others.
Yeah, I think this might catch on a bit, but then again, it might be that I don't know, the game is like VTubers in it, and I'm a VTuber myself, so I think they're just like, oh, I can play as myself in this bit. So I'm not sure if it'll stay popular, but it's very well done and very pretty, and it's adorable being chased by these like cute fox people and all these like adorable like the enemies in the game are fans, and they've been driven crazy with love, and you're making them okay again, and it's like you're not fighting or killing anybody, just like it's all really adorable. So it's like, oh, it was a very comfortable game to play through.
There's definitely room to take Vampire Survivors and make it cozy at least once.
And oh gosh, besides that, I also played Loop Hero, and I got a little bit addicted to that because that came out for free on the Epic Store. So I was like, okay, I've heard about this, and I think I'll give it a try. I know it came out a few years ago, but it was
I couldn't get past those visuals.
Oh,
I've
yeah,
never played it. Looking at it now, that's like what I was saying last time. I can't be dealing with those kind of blurry visuals.
Yeah, no, the way it works is that you play as a hero in a world that's been deleted, and you basically create the world around you by like spawning in like a vampire dungeon or a grove that spawns rat wolves, and you basically create the enemies around you so you can figure out what's going on. And it's mostly a game dedicated around the gameplay where it gets very addictive and grindy, and it's fairly fun and engaging. And like after you finish each wave, you have to like choose between, like if you die in the game, then you take 30% of your resources. If you retreat away from the spawn point, you take 60%. And then if you retreat at the spawn point, you take all of your resources. So it's like you're trying to play like, okay, do I want to leave or do I want to risk it all for another round? And it was good the first couple times I played it, but it's a very similar experience on like future playthroughs. And at the very end, like the story isn't actually that good. And you get to the end and it like kind of pulls a cop out. It's like, oh, I guess you'll have to play another time to figure out what happens. And I figured out, okay, there actually isn't really an ending. And it was pretty upsetting. Just like put in like 10+ hours of work, and then it was just like, oh, if we're just gonna cop out for the story. I was like, come on, it was building to something. I want to know what my like all this effort was for.
From what I've heard of it, and I didn't play it at the time, and I feel like it was getting a lot of praise at the time, and I think it's because it is a sign of the times, because roguelike and roguelikes, they were getting a lot of attention at that time because of Hades. So all of the rest of them that came after were just like, if you do an even semi-comprehensive or a semi-cohesive roguelike, we're going to praise it. And Loop Hero kind of fell into that bracket where, oh, it does this really cool thing, but it's not necessarily like the be all and end all, but people just wanted another Hades, I think. But I remember it getting quite a lot of praise, so it's surprising that it doesn't hold up even to the point where it's good as opposed to like Bit Party.
Yeah, no, I would say the gameplay loop is addictive, and it kind of functions a little bit like an idle game, where like you can walk away from the game for like 10 or 15 minutes because you're not actually fighting as the hero. You're just putting like stuff into his equipment and inventory. So it's like you actually can't control the combat or anything. So it's more on that sense where it's like, okay, this is an interesting take on it, but it doesn't stay interesting 20 plus hours in. It's like, okay, now it's very samey, grindy, and I'm just kind of, I want to be done now.
No. I think that what people need to realize about roguelikes is you need to be constantly giving the player something every single second to keep them engaged in that kind of game, because if you don't, it will just get really boring really quick. Hades is a good example of that, where everything is just constantly, you can pick this, and then you can have this, and then there's this thing you have to think about, but then there's this path that you have to take, but potentially, if you go back, then the story might change and evolve, and like there's just lots of stuff going on.
It is just like the perfect game.
Oh my gosh, I still haven't played Hades yet too. So it's like, oh.
Yes, you need to, JT. It's so good.
I'm worried.
Even as someone that doesn't particularly like roguelikes to the point where I will actively avoid them unless they're critically acclaimed, Hades is very good.
All right, I do own it, so I was like, oh, I better give it a try. I'm worried that I played too much Binding of Isaac and Dead Cells that kind of exhausted me from the genre. But I don't know. Again, you guys have given very good praise on it, and I've seen just all around. I don't think I've seen anyone say anything bad about the game. Where it's like, oh,
there's nothing bad to say about it. It's perfect. It is the perfect game.
Excellent. Well, I will also play it later and tell y'all what I think about it next time.
Yeah, boy.
And besides that, I have, I think, 2 more games I played. Oh yeah, I made the horrible mistake of playing Getting Over It on stream, and that was a nightmare.
That sounds terrible.
Oh, the thing is, I played through it once before and I actually got through most of the first section fairly quickly. Like, I made it up. There's, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the game parts, but there's... I
just see random clips of it on TikTok constantly, and, like, it's one of those things where, like, everyone was playing it on live and I just, like, scroll past it. Same with that other game, like, you just had to, like, climb up. It's just those kind of games I just don't get the appeal at all.
Oh, you mean Only Up?
Yeah,
that's the one. I think that got taken down or something.
Yeah, there was a whole controversy over some licensing stuff.
Yeah,
where,
I think it's just like everyone's assets.
But the thing is, for the first like 30-40 minutes, I was like, oh, I'm making a lot of progress, and then I made a single mistake at the mountain, and then I was never able to get it back to that first initial bit. So I've just like spent like a few hours on stream just suffering.
I would not be able to cope with that.
But it was a kind of fun game on stream. I don't think I'd ever play it again on my own. I'm really excited to play Baby Steps, which is coming out in another year or two, which is like co-op, developed by the same people who made Getting Over It, and it looks like a fairly funny game. But
it does look fun.
Yeah. Also, it's in like a 3D environment, like that kind of. It's kind of that kind of movement.
It also just
better
through like first impressions doesn't look quite as like irritating.
Yeah,
it's more like comedic and funny.
Right.
Every time I watch someone play Getting Over It, was like, but it's eventually going to go wrong, and you're going to lose all your progress, and you're going to get angry and never play it again.
That is like the experience of that game, and it's like, I mean, I commend the people who finish it, but it takes a lot of time and patience.
I just don't have the patience for stuff like that. I know myself. I would just rage way too quickly. Plus, it seems kind of boring anyway. It's just moving. It's just there's no fun in it.
Yeah,
it's fun to watch a speed run of it. That's quite interesting. Where they do it in like 40 seconds.
I just look at it and I'm baffled. Like, how did you do this? I can't even manage to like go jump that high. That you're just launching yourself to the end within a minute. And I can't. And I guess the last game I played through, I did play through a bit more of Lisa the Painful, but I won't talk about any more of that because it hurt me too much.
You're barred. It's been like 4 podcasts now. You're barred.
I'm done. But I played through Videoverse, which I mentioned to you two, but it was I talked about beforehand as a game I was excited for. It was a very adorable visual novel where it kind of takes place in a social media platform or social media thing, like 2003, so it's like before people really had phones or had a really good way of staying in touch, or just like through Discord or Twitter or anything. And it was really cute. It just, you watch you go through this young teen's relationship as this platform is coming to an end, and there's a little bit of romance, and he's trying to keep his friendships together, and it's very cute and sad. And I thought it was clever because I always get a little bit I'll put in visual novels where like you're staring at a character, but it's like a still image of them, and I think it can look nice, but it always feels a little bit, I don't know, unreal. And in this game, like when you're talking to a character, they have like a kind of retro-y camera set up, so we're like they're doing a character movement for like that's emoting their expression, and it's like if they're happy they make this face, if they're sad they make this face, or if they're smug they have like they look to the sides like oh, and it's it had all these little features that I thought were really cute, and the gameplay of the game was like, yeah, you're making choices and trying to be like very emotionally mature, but you're playing like it's the Twitter experience where you get the good ending through like liking posts and writing nice comments to people, because it is like on social media and you're controlling the site. So I thought it was really interesting. I got a little bit bored and I wasn't invested in the start, but by the end I was doing everything I can to make sure the character had the best experience, and it was really cute and adorable, and I think it was a good take on the visual novel series. I would say the one thing that word of caution is that the game has a little bit of nudity and like the social media stuff, where like there's a bit where like all of the moderators are playing and then people start putting like kind of retro-y like nude-ish art, and it's a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that's the point of it. So yeah, I highly recommend it if you like visual novels, and I just think it's a really good take and a fairly good story. It's just, it's a long-ish game and it's a lot of reading, so you have to like that to like be able to enjoy the game.
I feel like I need to be involved a lot more if I'm going to do all that reading.
Yeah.
I'm all for it, but I want to be involved, and I don't think I would be. But at the same time, I'm really interested in the whole kind of like old school social media before it was actually like a thing that was competently done. I'm all for like just going back and reminiscing over what Bebo was. I'm all for it.
Bebo. Oh, those were the days.
Oh, it's a cool experience because like I wasn't in that like really awake during that time, so I was like, oh, what like this was what like it's like encapsulating this kind of experience happening during this time period. I was like, oh, that's really cute. I can't imagine like going through that at that time. So it really puts you in that character's like position. So
well, I remember when it was like people were making the switch from Bebo to Facebook, and like it was so like interesting, like how some people would like, no, I'm always staying on Bebo, and some people went straight to Facebook. I was quite late to Facebook, but like when everyone else started leaving Bebo, I was like, right, well, I want to have friends, so I'll come along to Facebook, I guess. But like the early days of Facebook were just wild, because like there was like fan pages being created for like everything. Like it was like this page if you enjoy pizza and stuff like that, and everyone just like the page and stuff. It was like absolutely crazy.
It's actually a really interesting thing how they ended up getting used. Do you know the guy who's on Dragon's Den, Stephen Bartlett?
Oh yeah, I like him.
So that's how he got famous.
Really?
Like, this is a complete tangent, right? But he got famous because those groups existed and they had like hundreds of thousands of followers, but they had these really arbitrary things like whenever the bus drivers pass and they wave at each other, like that being like a page, but it had hundreds of thousands of people on it. So what he would do, he would contact the person that was the admin and buy it for like nothing, and then he had like 100,000 reach just like that.
Yeah,
that's smart.
And then he got rich doing that. Crazy.
Hey.
Really clever.
Yeah, very clever.
Oh my gosh.
But not gaming related. Not one bit.
No, not even gaming related, but interesting nonetheless.
Yeah.
I'm good for a tidbit now and again.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible like how right now everyone, or at least from our generation, for what I can see, like everyone's fairly connected through like Twitter, Discord, and a lot of different social medias. Just so to have this like all of your communication to be through this one thing, and like that being taken away, it's kind of amazing to see like how heartbreaking that can be for somebody who like that's their main source of like interaction with other people, and it's like, oh, that's really sad.
What you're saying is bring back people.
No, the early days of social media was something.
Oh man.
I just feel sad for you, JT. You never got love on Bebo. You never got to do your top 16.
I'll be honest, I've
never
heard
Bebo, and it really hurt my feelings.
I never heard Bebo until you guys mentioned it right now. I was like, is that like a cute character in like a kids TV show, Bebo?
No.
It's like, oh, that sounds interesting.
It was like the main competitor for like MySpace at the time.
Yeah. I had a MySpace, but I never used it. I just created it just in case people moved to MySpace. But no, I had my Bevo of my widgets in the corner so I could feed my little.
It lived off widgets and it was great.
JT has probably half our audience has no idea what we're
like,
talking about.
what's that?
But like,
are widgets still a thing?
I don't know.
I remember you could get widgets on your phone.
Oh man!
Unlike your like really old, the ones that weren't smartphones, but they weren't flip phones either. Like that little middle ground.
I know what a widget is in like OBS and stuff, and I was like, wait, is that a physical thing? I never heard of it.
So how it would exist, and I'm breaking down like this old relic, is you would have your page, and then you would have all these little sections that you could basically personalize it. So you had your video, which is like a YouTube link that would just play every time someone came onto your page, and that was your personalized video. And then you would have your top 16, and then you would have, there was just so many little things you could do.
Oh, it was so tough choosing your top 16 as well. If you don't hurt anyone's feelings, you need to make sure you get the right people in the right order. And
and then you had Bebo skins as well, which were like the skins for your entire thing.
Get my custom. And those quizzes you used to be able to do where you get points for like answering questions about your friends, and you could use those points to see what your friends were saying about you. And
it sounds
I'm going to stop now because I know I'm alienating JT a lot. And the rest of the people listening, probably.
Back to games. What have you been playing, Callum?
Yeah, so I've only got one other one to chat about. Well, two actually, because one of them was GRIS, which I finished and platinumed, and that is done. It was very nice. We discussed that. The other one, which is not the big one that I spent a lot of time on, is Sephonie. I played that, and I thought I would like it. It kind of sucked a lot. I didn't enjoy it at all, really. The reason why I didn't, it wasn't down to the graphics, because like they kind of
shock.
Right. Well, the graphical side of things I thought was fine, because it kind of harks back to them like old school GameCube days where it's not quite polygons, it's not quite pixels, it hasn't quite worked itself out yet, and that's fine. I quite like it, but the gameplay is just it's intentionally rough around edge. I can tell this is what they meant to do. But it's not fun, and it's not nice to interact with.
Smooth in the trailer. It was so obvious from the trailer what it was going to be like, Cal. This is entirely on you.
No, it's not entirely on me. Because I thought it was going to be good. And I was so...
It was so obvious from the trailer that was not going to play well at all.
Well, it does bank a lot on its story. Like, the platforming's quite clever in the way that it's designed. It's just it's not, the movement's not good, and that's what breaks it down, because the actual design side of things, it works quite well, but it almost feels like how I imagine Sonic Frontiers is, because I've never played it, but the way whenever I looked at it, it kind of just looked like assets in a field, and you ran up to them and you done all this parkour and stuff, but it was just like assets in a field, and you done the puzzle, and then it was done. Same thing with Sephonie, really, where you get to this area and it's just all these assets that you have to kind of platform between, but they don't feel like a cohesive world. They don't feel like, they just kind of feel like shove them in there and they'll serve as a challenge to someone. So, and that annoyed me for a start. Then the tank controls, now they're not strictly tank controls. They're a little bit better than that. They're not quite like PS1 Tomb Raider, but they are not a million miles away either. So basically you have the ability to run, jump, and wall jump. The jumping is the running is, it's very stiff. So like you can turn diagonally and it's not tank controls, but it just feels really labored. The wall running is brutal. You don't stick to the wall at all. You feel like you're making mistakes, not because you're making them, but because the game isn't letting you succeed. Yeah. There's a lot of that going on.
When that happens, it gets me so mad.
But I struggled on for about 2/3 of the game, I reckon, and it was just because I was thinking, surely the story has something to give me here.
And did it?
No, I did not. And it's because it's so obnoxiously dense. Like it starts off quite simple in the sense that you are 3 explorers that discover this island, and you're discovering all these scientific resources that this thing has to offer, and it does the typical Japanese thing where it just becomes intentionally complex and dense and overcomplicates everything it wants to do with a story, and goes into these really philosophical things and brings in these supernatural things that don't make sense either. And it just, honestly, I have a lot of like bandwidth for that sort of thing. I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan. I have a lot of bandwidth for that. I had not enough to even get 2/3 into this game. And the one thing I will praise about it is the accessibility functions are very good, because you can turn on infinite jumps, you can turn on like essentially flying mode, and that's what I did. I got all my trophies by just jumping through at speed and getting.
You can even get the achievements doing that. Nice.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to sit for another 4 or 5 hours. I just wasn't. It was really poor. Maybe the story does get better, but I literally turned off the text and had it like speed through the text. So I don't know what happened in the rest of the game, but it didn't give me any reason to find out, so I don't feel bad about it. And it's weird because it's one of those Ratalaika games where like they are sometimes hit and miss, but sometimes they're really good. But that one is not a good example of that. So that was disappointing, but you know, in for a penny, in for a pound, and all that.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I played, which is the one that JT also played, and we can talk about at length, is Blasphemous 2. The embargo for the review is over.
Talk about it.
Yes. We can talk about it. By the time this is out, the embargo for the guides will be off as well, so we can talk freely about everything. And it's a pretty good game. I will let JT go first because I'm going to be a little bit more negative than him, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I personally loved it. I thought it was probably my second favorite Metroidvania now after Hollow Knight. I really adored the combat was so good, the visuals were such a big improvement, and like all of the animated cutscenes were, it was like watching the anime at those points. I was like, yes, this is so good. The only bit that wasn't quite as good was the story, where it was so cryptic and vague, and that's just the point of the game. I should probably explain. Like, the game is a Metroidvania set in a kind of apocalyptic religious setting where there's this eldritch horror thing called the Miracle that everyone's worshipping, and in the first game you defeated the Miracle, but now the Miracle is having a child somehow, which doesn't really make any sense. But the whole point is that you're fighting through these kind of corrupted versions of religious figures, and it's a typical Metroidvania. You get abilities, you can double jump, you can dash, you can do all of these things, and the combat is so good. I love it, and I don't know, just like it's a major improvement from the first game in every way. They take all the things they did wrong. You no longer get instantly killed when you fall into the spikes, thank goodness. And even like the bits where like you can grab on the ledges, like it's a small thing, but it feels so good. It's like, okay, I don't have to worry about like dying because of a dumb platforming part that if I die, it's on me. I guess the one part that Callum, I'll agree with you on because we talked about it a little bit beforehand, but the gameplay in combat, it's fairly easy. Like a lot of the bosses are a piece of cake for the most part. Like the game gives you 3 weapons at the very start, and one of them, Veredicto, it's a giant swinging bell weapon that has very good damage and like a massive range, and it basically makes every enemy and boss in the game just about like a walk in the park. And so that part was like, yeah, that needs a lot of work, but just like how fluid the game felt and playing through it, and all the little things like the synergies between figurines. Like if you have one, it's like you can, if you drink the health item of Bioflask, that can pause time in the game, and it's like all these little things like, oh, that's a cool little feature, and they just they took a leap of faith and they went with that. And it felt like they took all the things that were wrong with the game in the first one, they fixed that, and then they took all the things that were right with other Metroidvanias like Hollow Knight, and they said like, oh, we'll take that. Because they do have a lot of the Hollow Knight features. Like the figurines are like the charm feature of Hollow Knight for the most part. Yeah. And a lot of the weapons are, it's like Great Slash and Dash Slash, and like that's there. So I don't mind that. It's like, oh, you know what? If that worked in that game and you can make it work here, then like go for it. So overall, I had a really good time with the game. It was very fun. The story wasn't as great, but it's God, it's done so well. It's like it's worth doing. So all right, I'll let you get into your talk, Callum, and tear apart the game.
I'm not going to tear it apart because it is a good game. Like the thing that made me realize more than anything else is I am finally willing to put down my tools and say I am not going to like Metroidvanias. Doesn't matter what it is for the most part. I am not going to enjoy them. They're not for me. It's not my genre. I've tried my best to like them, and on occasion I will get through one and I will be like, okay, that was fine. But I never talk about them at length and kind of gush over them. Even the big ones like Hollow Knight, I'm like, yeah, it's good. it's not one of my favorites, and I know it's like a critically acclaimed. Everyone loves it. Everyone wants the second one. I'm like, I could take or leave it. I know it's good, but it's not me. And that's how I feel about Blasphemous as well. No, it is not to the same standard as like Metroidvania royalty or things like Dead Cells and things like Hollow Knight. Like, it's not up there. I don't think it's not a million miles away, but it's not quite there. The reason being, like you said, in terms of the weapon balancing, that is a huge issue, to the point where all the good work that they do to put in charms and figurines and new prayers, so you can do like quick action ones and long-term ones that you build up with a meter, like all that good stuff that they do to make the combat a little bit more action heavy and more fluid, it kind of gets taken away by the fact that you can just go with a hammer and swing away and you'll get through it just fine. And that is what I did. There's also a lot of other systems that just don't really work. They tried to do this Dark Soulsy thing where it wants to punish you, because that's the theme of the game. Like, the theme is all about like repenting and all that carrying on. So essentially what it's trying to get you to do is, if you die, you lose some of your it's grief or guilt. Sorry. So whenever you lose some of your guilt, it means you can't use your prayer bar quite as much, and then you have to go to your place that you died, you get it back. But they don't do it in the Dark Soulsy way, where you have one set place and you go and get it, because you're going to be on the way there anyway 9 times out of 10, and it's one thing you pick up. Instead, you get an individual one every single time you die, so it could be all over the map, and you can't just kind of like avoid it. You have to go and get that and engage with the enemies that are there, and then go to the next bit and engage with the enemies that are there. And it's a bit of an issue, because there's ways around it, and they're so much more efficient. So you can go to a confession booth and essentially pay 1,000 of the currency in the game to cleanse your sins, and that means you get all of your prayer bar back. And because Tears of Atonement, which is the currency, are so easy to get, there's no reason not to do that. It becomes a chore. It becomes a chore in the sense that you have to actually go and do it, but like, it's so much more handy than actually going to all the individual markers, which you'll just never do. And in my case, because I was just trying to get through the game and I wasn't all that fussed with engaging with it either way, I just decided I don't really need the prayers. I'm happy enough just being the melee guy. I don't need all of the extras. And you get through the game just fine without it as well. It makes it maybe a tiny bit trickier, but again, if you have the hammer, you're going to be fine, so it's not a problem. But there are quite a lot of like improvements. I went and had I haven't played Blasphemous, but I went and watched some Let's Plays to make sure I wasn't talking rubbish when I done my review. And a lot of the quality of life improvements are definitely clear to see. Like the platforming looks much more cohesive, amongst other things. One thing I was very impressed with, and it's kind of like a more game designy sort of thing that I'm gushing about, is there are 3 weapons within the game. You've got your kind of double daggers for like quick action. Then you've got your heavy bell, which is your kind of heavy warhammer melee, and then you've got the sword as kind of your in between. In that kind of way, where you phrase it that way, it seems pretty standard. But the way that they use these weapons to break up your path towards the boss is really clever. So depending on which one you take, you've essentially assigned yourself a path through the first 3 bosses, because they are essentially acting as 3 pillars that hold up the end game zone. You need to take out all 3 of them to get there, but the world is split into 3, and you can only access that if you have a certain weapon that allows you to do the platforming that is assigned to each weapon. And the platforming is actually really good with the weapons. It starts off really simple, because you obviously have like the bell, which allows you to create platforms with its sound, and then you've got the daggers that allow you to kind of teleport, and then you've got the sword that allows you to bash down on the ground and break structures. And that they're tutorialized, and it's very easy. But once you start putting the 3 of them together in a really succinct way, it actually becomes really challenging to get those in sync, and it creates some really good platforming sections. So that aspect of the game, very, very good. But I think the combat and the bosses as well really let it down, because they are very much a mixed bag. Some of them are quite good. Like I was talking last week, I think we were off camera, I was talking about Lesmus and Infanta. I think that's the name.
Lesmus, they're the Ornstein and Smog kind of wannabes.
They're essentially Ornstein and Smog from Dark Souls, where you're fighting one, and then all of a sudden the second one pops up, and you're like, oh, crap. So that was a really, really strong boss. But then for every boss like that, you have one like Orospina, which is this fencing character which comes after you. And like it's a very simple boss. You kind of jump around a few times, get over her head, hit her, repeat, it's done.
Yeah.
And just some of them are not strong, but some of them are. And if all of them were strong, you'd be talking about Blasphemous 2 as this super incredible Metroidvania that would live on as a classic. I just don't think it is one.
Yeah, that's fair with a lot of the bosses. I agree. Like Orosafina, I beat her in the very end in like less than a minute because the Veridicto Flame Power is just it's too powerful. They need to make the weapon weaker for the game to be more balanced.
Yeah. In a game that's meant to be punishing, if I beat the boss the first time, I'd be like, I feel shortchanged. I'm like, I didn't even have to learn the attack patterns. Come on.
Yeah. I will say that like visually though, like I think like a lot of the moves they do, just like where it's all kind of horrifying and grotesque, and it's like ew. Like I did love that. I was kind of excited to see like, okay, what's this next boss like look like? And
well, this is something that I couldn't really criticize that, but I wasn't going to give it as much praise as I would have maybe given the first game, because that was like the breakout title that kind of established that. You almost now expect it to be all grotesque. It's a step up in terms of graphical like fidelity from the last one, but I don't think it's like huge. I think they've just maintained what they've done and gave it a little bit of polish. So it's good, but it really needed to polish all the other bits to make it a classic.
Yeah, that's very fair. I do think some of the like there's two fights. Actually, no, the fight before the very final boss is actually a very, very challenging fight. But almost every other fight in the game it's a piece of cake. So that's a very fair criticism. I will say that
the opposite of Hollow Knight, I guess.
Oh, it's a very much more like darker, mature Hollow Knight. That's I mean, Hollow Knight had some kind of gross parts.
I was gonna say because the Hollow Knight bosses just take so long.
Oh yeah, it's also they don't show you like the health bar in Hollow Knight, which
yeah.
So
they showed that in the Blasphemous then.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like if they hadn't had the health bar, then like I think you would get more frustrated because like, oh wait, it was that quick. I what? But yeah, I don't know. Again, yeah, they were a piece of cake, and I think you could say make the argument like, oh, what if I just like played with the other weapons to have a harder experience? But even then, it's like, it's hard to forgive that.
It just feel like an achievement, I guess.
Yeah.
When you finally beat them.
Yeah. I would say the one again. I do love like when you beat them, like you get treated to a little bit of the animated cutscenes, and I was like, yes. Or that
they are very. I compared them to like it's not something I'm very into, but I've seen enough of it to go, oh, I think that's something that it kind of is similar to. I compared it to Attack on Titan. I was like, it's actually quite close in terms of the way it looks, and it definitely made me think. I want to get through the game so I can get another one of these little cutscenes, and they were just very short-lived. I was like, I could do a few more. Come on.
Yeah, I was fortunate in the they released some DLC for the first game that had like much longer versions of the cutscenes. Like they have the very ending fight, and it's like I think a minute or two of the animated cutscenes, and it's so delightful. It's like yes, it's like I just like oh man, I hope they get like a whole anime of this show. It would look so good. Yeah, it's like oh it was always like only a few seconds long. It's like oh, come on, give me more.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll stop talking about that, Melika. Tell us about your game.
So I haven't actually played as much as usual this time. It's been quite busy. So first thing I played, I was so happy. It was finally released on Xbox. Is Stray. I was like, yes, let's go. Because as soon as Stray was launched, like I think it was last year, and I saw it, I was so jealous because I love the idea of playing as a cute cat. And I finally did. Now, I'll admit, I didn't actually know too much about the gameplay. Literally, all I saw was you play as a cat, and I was already sold. I didn't even need to watch anything about it. So I wasn't like, I didn't know what I was expecting, but it's got kind of like a sort of very cyberpunk-esque kind of feel in terms of the world that it's set in. And it's like it's darker than I thought it would be. Not in like in terms of like nitty-gritty dark themes, more just in terms of the setting looks quite sort of dark and shabby. So the sort of premise is you play as from the third person, but you're playing as a cat who's lost the rest of their stray cat pack. You've sort of fallen through this gap and tumbled into this city that's just like enclosed underground, and you find out that it's essentially populated by robots and humans died off years ago. Now, the start of the game was really slow and kind of boring, and I was like, oh my god, is this how it's going to play? But I think it's like either chapter 2 or chapter 3, you find a droid who becomes your companion, and it gets much better from there. So I'd say if you're playing it, definitely do stick with it, because it starts off very slow, but it gets a lot better once you meet the droid friend. And then you sort of explore around, you learn more about the world around you, what's happened, you collect memories, because that's your droid friend will like, you'll find areas and he'll scan it, and he'll like learn more about the world. And just, yeah, it's just really interesting sort of learning about what happened to this world, why are they all encased underground. And I won't give any spoilers or anything, but I love the backstory with the droids, when you sort of learn about like who the droid is, where they came from, what their purpose is. And like it was pretty emotional, actually. I wasn't expecting it. I always get attached to robots though, but yeah, I really do like the droid a lot, and I love the dynamic between the droid and the cat, like always looking out for each other. And I'll tell you what though, because with the memories, they're kind of like often hidden in kind of hard to locate places. I found all but 2 of them on my first playthrough without needing any kind of walkthrough. And the only reason I didn't find the 2 is because I didn't realize the chapter was going to end. Because what I like to do is do the stuff and then go back and look around. But the way that the chapter in the Midtown City, the way that chapter ends is quite sudden, and you don't really have a say in it. It just kind of happens to you and takes you to the next chapter. So I wasn't able to collect all of them. And it was so annoying when I went back to get it for the achievement, because the memory I'd missed was in a part of the game you cannot access until right near the end of the chapter. So I had to play through all of the things, doing a bunch of side quests to get that last memory for the achievement. But I was quite surprised by how short it was as well. I think I was expecting it longer, but it was like 4 or 5 hours. It was a very short game, and I did enjoy it. I'm not entirely sure it was quite worth the price tag. So I think it was like £25-30, and it's like for 5 hours, that is a lot of money. Like I think 15-20 would have been a lot fairer. But I mean, I'm glad I played it. I definitely did enjoy it, and I thought it had a great story, great game. Well, I say great gameplay. I didn't like the fact that there was no platforming. I was like, I'm playing as a cat, I should be able to jump all the time. But the way it is, you walk up to ledges and it will tell you can press A, so you can only jump to and from the things it tells you. You can't there's no risk of falling off because you can only jump when it tells you. And yeah, I didn't really like that aspect of it. I thought, I'm playing as a cat. Cats should be able to just jump wherever they like. I don't like that it's forcing me into doing the way it wants me to move, and I don't like there's no risk of falling. Like that's half the fun of platforming, is getting the skill right. There's no skill, you just press A when it appears on the screen. So that aspect wasn't great. There are some sections of the game you have to use like stealth to avoid drones. That was quite fun. There's another, because even though the cities are safe, in between the levels you have to navigate past these little furry, menacing things that want to try and eat you. They look very cute, but they will just tear your flesh off and you'll die. So you have to try and avoid them. And there's a couple of really fun sections where you're just absolutely running at full pelt, trying to dodge around obstacles whilst they're chasing you, so you can't make a mistake. And then there's one part of the game as well where you get a special gun, but it's on a timer, so you can only use it for a certain amount of time. You've got to really think. You kind of got best way to do it is lure them all into one place so you can catch them all in one go, because otherwise you'll run out of gun and they'll just eat you alive. So those parts were stressful but fun, I would say. And yeah, overall I liked the ending. I thought it was very clever, but should have been either should have been longer or should have been cheaper. Should not have been 30 quid for a 4 or 5 hour game, is what I would say. And you've played that one as well, right, Cal?
Yeah, I have. And I told you whenever you brought up the news it was coming to Xbox, temper your expectations, because I think it succeeds on the fact that it is one of those viral games. And that's not to say that it was bad, because I liked it. Yeah. But I just thought it wasn't one of those groundbreaking best indie game of the year that most people were saying. I was I
would definitely agree with you on that front. It's a fun game. I'll probably give it somewhere between, I reckon probably about 7 is what I'd give it. It's good, it's not amazing. And if it wasn't a main character as a cat, it wouldn't be as fun as it is. It wouldn't be as popular as it is. That's just a fact. If you're just playing as some generic person, exact same story, it'll just fall completely under the radar. So it does very much kind of get through on the novelty of what it is. It is still a good game. It is still worth playing if you can get it on sale, maybe. But yeah, just as Cal says, temper your expectations, because it's not everything it's hyped up to be.
So were there any... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cal.
I was just gonna say I like the setting. I thought the setting was really, really good, and there are some aspects of it that work really well. Like the stealth sections, I quite enjoyed, and I also like that they included a speedrunning achievement where you have to beat the game in 2 hours because I quite enjoyed like.
I haven't done that one.
It sounds hard. It's actually not that hard.
Yeah, I was gonna say because we won't have to collect the memories. It should be pretty easy, I reckon.
If you know the order of things, you can do it in like maybe an hour and a half. I think
I reckon how is it like a no death run or literally just under 2 hours?
No, literally just under 2 hours.
Yeah,
there is one really annoying achievement, and I got it quite quickly, so I was kind of spared the pain. But do you remember the section where you're running away from all the fuzzies? Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to get hit by those fuzzies for that entire run. You got that achievement?
I can't remember if I got the achievement or not. I just remember I just did it first try. Just ran, no one get me. I just ran.
No, whenever I say they're not allowed to get you, I mean like they're not allowed to touch you one bit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was dodging. I was just like I was in the zone. I was like, no, stay away from me, you horrible furry fuzzballs. Like it wasn't for both of them. I can't. It was either one or the other. I can't remember which one. One of them I did get bit a couple of times. Didn't die, but got bit. But the other one I wasn't touched. It was like, nah, get away from me, you freaks.
it could potentially be the other one, and just because it is notoriously bad amongst like.
Yeah, I think it must be the other one.
Yeah, the achievement community, they were like, you just have to get really, really lucky because the way I'd done it was
all the angles and stuff, and
you just have to literally zigzag, and just hope for the best, and eventually you get it.
Yeah.
But all in all, it's a fun game, but it's not one that I would put like a ton of stock into. And it was in the same year as like Neon White and Tunic and all those lovely games, and they were like, oh, but the cat game came out. I was like, yeah, okay.
What were you going to ask, JT?
Yeah, well, I was really curious if there's like any section where you can do something adorable as a cat for an extended period of time, like like the.
There's lots of things you can like. There's like loads of like rugs and stuff that you can also like scratch on the walls and like for example, you can't open doors because you're a cat and you don't have the opposable thumbs for handles. So when you open doors, you scratch at the door until one of the robots lets you in and stuff, and you can like curl up on a blanket and like snuggle up for a while. So there are things like that. You can just knock stuff off of tables, which is quite fun to do. But yeah,
the game really does succeed on like putting all that stuff in there, because that's why the game got its viral status. So like you can curl up, and like I said, on the PS5 the controller purrs. Like they really leaned into that stuff.
Really cute.
I just think of like playing Untitled Goose Game, but like as a cat, and just like having those minutes where you can just get something silly.
Untitled Goose Game has so much more content.
Yeah. Oh man, and then another one I completely forgot because I was so excited for Coffee Talk 2 when it came out, and I started playing it, but I can't remember what it was. Something else came out very soon after it, and I realized I never actually finished Coffee Talk 2. So I was kind of like trying to decide what to. I was like, oh my god, I need to go back and play that. So I've been playing Coffee Talk 2 again, and I don't know why, but I'm getting bored of it like really quickly. And I was enjoying it at first, but this one's quite a bit longer than the first one. And
is it just more of the same though?
Yeah, well, it's like essentially, it's like a different story. It's like a couple of extra drinks. Like that's the part I like. I like making the drinks, but the story is taking longer. And I don't know if they like rushed it or something, but there's like more grammar issues or just like very basic. Like it feels almost like it could have been written by AI, and I know it wasn't. And like the story like elements I like, but the way it's written is very dragged out. Like there's just every sentence could, like, for example, you have like a whole interaction that could have been just one or two sentences.
So like, does it feel like it's more padding in that case, where it's like,
that's the thing. Like, it feels very artificially long. Like I would have preferred it to be more succinct and just like I still haven't finished it, but it's getting to the point where I really just want to be done with it. I want to know what happens. I'm invested in the story, but it's just taking too long. It's one of the reasons I don't like to play visual novels. I just don't have the patience for them. And Coffee Talk, the first one, I felt did quite a good job of not fluffing it. Like it was just like every sentence felt like it should be there. Whereas Coffee Talk 2, there's so much, hi, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine. How are you? And what have you been up to? Oh, same old sentence. It's just, I don't care. Get to the juicy bits.
Yeah, I can see that would potentially be an issue, because Coffee Talk, I felt like it was just the right length where I was like, I'm done with that now. And the drinks were good enough that it kind of kept me engaged throughout. But I have the second one sitting there, and I kind of have no real
Yeah,
drive.
well, that's the thing. Like, I was excited to make the drinks. I like making the drinks. That's the fun part, discovering the new ones. And I was excited to learn about the story, which I still am. I just wish it would get there quicker. Like, I don't know. I can't remember how much I've played already, but there's still so much left on the progress bar. And I'm like, I reckon it must be at least 2 or 3 times longer than the first one. Like, it's so much longer, and it just doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Like, and there's new aspects involved. For example, you can like collect items, which you then like give them when you hand their drinks to like help progress the story, which is fun little additional aspects. But there's just not enough happening in between the talking, and it's just getting really, really boring. And I'm like, I want to finish it to know what happens, but I'm just doing it chapter by chapter because it's just dragging so much.
Yeah.
So after the disappointment of realizing Coffee Talk 2 wasn't quite what I'd hyped it up to be in my head, I decided to go back to something that I know I love, and I've been playing more Slay the Spire. And I've been doing, instead of just playing the regular, I've just been doing the daily climbs. So just doing sort of like 1 or 2 things a day. And I'm really enjoying it because the daily climbs essentially have unique mods every single day. And they'll tell you, here's a player, here's like the mods, and every single person playing will have the exact same like RNG thing. So if you picked the same things, you would get the same answers kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's just very much like there's still elements of luck because you don't know, for example, which past question mark is going to be the good question mark, for example, but there's a lot more skill involved, like to get on the leaderboard and stuff. But the thing with me, it's like I'm not really going for the points. I just like having a fun run. So I often end up winning but being mid-table because I will nearly always go for the question marks because it's like, monster battle, I like the battling. I think the battling in Slay Spire is very good, but the question marks, I love discovering all these like sudden hidden events and stuff. And it's like even if I'm posed with like a rest site or a question mark, there's always that temptation to go for the question mark because you just never know what events you're going to come across. Like it could be bad, could be good. I had a really unlucky the other day. I had 2 bad ones in a row, and it's like, oh, that's not good. But yeah, I think the mods give it so much more because I haven't really played with mods much in the past. Like I've done a bit of the Ascensions, and I usually just play the regular. Whereas with the mods, it's been so much fun discovering the things. So I've been doing the daily climbs, and I've been doing some custom games. And there's one I did yesterday that was so much fun. I was playing as the Silent, and I put some custom mods on. So there was one where all of the enemies, instead of dropping cards, they'd drop relics. And then one of the first relics I got was the relic says you get an additional card reward. So basically I was getting relics and card rewards on every enemy. And I also had flight, which means I can choose, I don't have to stick to just one route. I can just, every single layer, I can just pick whichever one is the best option of the next location to go to. I had the starting deck, I could pick 10 from a series of 30 just be in my deck, and then I'd also have 5 of 1 cards. And yeah, I just built the most insane poison deck, so I was just taking out all the bosses in like 3 or 4 turns. It was so much fun. Like I got relatively low scores, only sort of like 700 and 800 because I've ignored all the monsters, but I just had an absolute blast doing it. And yeah, it's been really fun just having it to see all the different play styles I can have that you wouldn't get in the normal Slay the Spire modes.
Hey, that sounds so broken. I love that, but oh my gosh, like getting able to like pick what cards you'd start with, like, oh, that's
well, yeah,
so
like
good.
it's still from like a limited pool. Like it would be insane if you could just like pick what. I wish they would let you do that, to be honest. Like I just want to see how fun it would be to just start with like the perfect deck. But no, it is pretty cool, sort of like starting with cards you wouldn't normally start with.
Right.
It's one that I definitely want to go back to, but I kind of fell off it whenever the extra characters got brought into it. So I liked the initial 2, and then I really didn't like the next 2.
You didn't like the Defect of the Watcher?
No, I was kind of more into the more.
It took me a while to get used to. Like when the Watcher first came out, I was like, this is so different. But like the Defect, I was immediately hooked on the Defect. I love the Defect because the Defect's so good for using with powers, and like powers, like you get them with the other characters, but they're not as useful. With the Defect, the powers are so great because he's got ones created by AI, which is fantastic. Which is one that just puts a random card in your hand each turn. And it's going to be a power, and you can play it. It's perfect, and just all the stuff like that. I really love exploring anything that's going to create sort of like dynamic issues between the other stuff. So you got fun combos and everything. I love when cards have really fun synergy. That's what I was looking for. Like I love when cards and relics have brilliant synergies. It works out so well.
I like deck builders, but the thing I've noticed with a lot of the deck builders that I've enjoyed, they decided to change the rules, and I really resent when they do that, and I don't want to play anymore. So Inscription's a good example of that, where they just kind of flip the script halfway through, and I'm like, oh, but I really liked the way it was.
Yeah.
Slay of the Spire is the exact same, where I got used to these two characters, and then they were like,
these are really those two characters.
I know, but I was like, I want to get to know all of them and do them well, and I tried the other two. I was like, these are way too high concept for me. I don't want this.
They are pretty high concept, but that's why it feels so good when you do get used to them. And also, if you want to get used to them, you can go on the Indie Game Culture website where there's handy guides for each of the characters. I think you wrote the other one, didn't you, JT?
Yeah,
for the Silent.
I wrote the one with the Silent. And I think
I wrote the Ironclad, the Defect, and the Watcher, and JT did the Silent. So between us, we've got all the characters, a nice little getting started guides for them. Yeah. As well as getting started with Slay the Spire if you've never played the game, which was also by me. I love Slay the Spire.
It's so good. It's so addicting. I had to stop after I can't remember if I beat it or not, but I was doing Ascension 20 on the Silent. And
I've never done A20. I just don't like when it's too hard. I get stressed. I like playing it for fun. So I think highest Ascension I've got is like 7 or 8. It's not high at all because I don't like the Ascension. I like
the catharsis though of beating the boss and like saying,
it must feel amazing to beat it on A20.
Yeah, A20 that you have to fight 2 bosses, like one right after the other, and it takes so long to do, but when you finally do it, you just like have your hands in there like, I did it. Yeah. It's so good.
Man, that's very impressive, because I think it's something ridiculous, like only like 0.3% of people have beaten the game on A20. Like it's really, really low on the achievement. Yeah.
Well, that feels really good for me.
I can't remember what it is, but it's definitely below 1%. It's really low.
Done it with every single character, just the first 2, and the Defect. I love the Defect, but in the harder difficulties, it turns into like such a longer fights, and that can be good too. But it's very just like I feel like I'm taking so much more time getting the higher ascensions for that, so it's rough.
Man. Nice. But yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Awesome, and that is what we have been playing. But yeah,
Callum, I wanted to mention. Do you know there's a mod for Inscription like in the game? It's called Casey's mod. Okay, yes. So you know about that.
I have heard of it, and I will go back to it at some point. I just really resented the fact that they just flipped on me. I was enjoying that, and I want to play. And it wasn't for me. But sure, I'll get around to it, as will I with all the games in my backlog. Don't worry about it. But yeah, that is the games that we've been playing. If you will stick around, there will be more. And we are back for section 2, which is indies on our radar. We're going to be looking at the indies that are coming up in September, roughly in the middle. Don't want to go too far because we have other podcasts to do. But hey, we will let you know which ones are on the radar in the next coming weeks. Who wants to kick us off?
I'm happy to start this time.
Let's go.
Okay, now this first one, I don't have proof for, so this is based on a rumor. So we know there is a Cassette Beast DLC coming called Peers of the Unknown, and there's a rumor on the subreddit that they're going to drop it early September. It's kind of like a surprise thing. So don't get your hopes up. It might not happen, but it could be. And if it's anywhere near as good as the last like the DLC was, it should be amazing, because it should hopefully include new areas, new monsters, new quests. So I'm very excited to see what it is. Like I said, not necessarily coming because they haven't officially given us a date, but the buzz on the subreddit is that we should expect it hopefully early September. So I really hope we get that, because as you guys know, absolutely love Cassette Beasts. It's been my new love after Pokemon. Another one very much on my radar that unfortunately Cal can't tell us too much about is Sea of Stars. So that's coming out officially on the 29th, but he's been lucky with his advanced copy to just play through it. But yeah, it looks absolutely incredible, because I have kind of like a very interesting relationship with RPGs where I love them as a concept, but so often they can be really disappointing. Like they're either done really, really well or really, really badly, and there's rarely an in between. So I've got high hopes for it based on the trailer, though. It looks like the combat's kind of like interesting without being ridiculously complicated, because I don't like when it's too easy, because that's boring. But when it's so complicated, it's like it just make a combat game at that point. Don't make an RPG. Whereas Sea of Stars looks like it gets it just right. The visuals are stunning. It seems like the story is going to be very beautiful. So yeah, I'm really excited for that one. That should be a really, really strong contender, I would say.
I can speak about it through the lens of the demo, and I'll not give anything more than that, because everyone has access to the demo. They have done for a month. So in terms of the combat side of things where you struggle with it, it is a perfect blend of complex to the point of satisfactory for like the person playing, rather than complex to the point where it's super confusing and it's really difficult and you feel like an absolute pro when you get it. It doesn't ask a lot of you, but it's complex enough to kind of keep your brain ticking over, so that there is a little bit of challenge there. So you have your live mana, which is like little particles that get created on the ground when you do a physical attack, and you can use those to charge yourself with magic so that you can do magic attacks when you do physical attacks. And then you also have your magic and your combos, like any old RPG, and then you also have ultimates as well.
It sounds like it's going to be really good. I deliberately haven't played the demo because I try to avoid demos so I can just be like fully impressed by the full game. Yeah. Like it's the same way I feel about early access. I don't play games in early access no matter how much I'm looking forward to them, because I want the full experience of just playing the full game. So I would only actually play a demo if I'm not sure if I want to play a game, but I know I want to play Sea of Stars, so I'm saving it until the full release.
So
have you had that one on your radar, JT?
I've heard of it from you guys a bit, and I've looked at it, and I think it's interesting. I just want to ask for the demo. Is that one of those things where like you can play the demo and then it carries your progress, or is the demo like something wholly unrelated where it's like?
No, they basically just done a little bit of patchwork and they've redacted some content and they've put together a little bit of a demo so that you can see what it's about. So you don't necessarily have to take on. It's all very early game stuff that it shows, but it's a good thing to kind of get you acquainted with the combat more than anything else. Everything else is really straightforward. The combat is something you kind of have to get your head around at the start, but it's tutorialized pretty well anyway. But the main thing that you have to get your head around the combat side of things is the enemy locks. So how that's done is every time an enemy wants to do an attack, it's timed, and you have a certain amount of turns to clear their lock to stop them having their attack. So they might have like one solar, one physical, and one lunar damage, and you have to do combos or attacks that match that. And if you do them before they get their attack out, you kill their attack and you don't take any damage. And you have to get really good at making these like synergies. So if you're someone that really likes your party being very important and how you kind of set them up for each turn, really, really good.
Yeah, no, I like being able to sort of like really get into the nitty gritty of combat without it being too ridiculous. So yeah, it does very much look like it should be up my street, because I've been wanting to play a good RPG for a while, because like I said, I can be very picky, so I have very high hopes for Sea of Stars, but have to see. And then another one, now this one doesn't have a release date yet, but this is SteamWorld Build, and I know they're presenting at Gamescom, so I figure they must be very close to release, so that's why I'm bringing it up this time. So this one is like a kind of like management game where you build, it's kind of like set in the desert and you sort of build your area, and it looks kind of like, I've never played Factorio, but it looks like it might be kind of like a similar game to Factorio in terms of like the sort of like management style of setting it all up. And then you can create a top level, and there's also like an underground level where you can like mine for resources, so it's and like set up workers and everything. So it does look like it can be a very sort of interesting resource management game, and I really enjoy the graphics of it as well. It's got like sort of steam trains running through it, and the whole thing, it kind of looks like very jolly and very sort of deserty. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to hopefully playing that in the next couple of days at Gamescom in Cologne. So that one is very much one to look out for. It, like I said, no release date yet. It just says coming 2023, but I think we should expect it very soon, based on the fact they've clearly got a full build. Well, not necessarily a full build, but a decent enough build to present at the at Gamescom. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, that one sounds cool too.
Yeah, no,
I get on board with that.
Factorio, and I don't know, any game that emulates that is going to be a good time. But Factorio is so addictive. I've spent. It's one of those games where like it's very hard to put down. It's like you can step into it and then you walk away, and it's the sun's rising again. It's like,
yeah, I've heard that about Factorio, because I've got a friend who recently got back into it. He was saying like he's taken over his life. He can't eat, can't sleep, can't do anything else. So I think Factorio is one of those ones I've deliberately avoided, like Minecraft. I know I'll just like lose all of my time playing it. So I'm hoping SteamWorld Build will be interesting enough without being so addictive that I can't play anything else.
Yeah, those infinite games are something I have to try and avoid, just as a rule, because I know what Rocket League did to me.
It can be interesting.
Gosh, yeah, but no, I love those games where it's like the enemy is you from, I don't know, 15 to minutes to an hour ago, and it's like, okay, I didn't build the system right, and now I'm paying for my mistakes.
Made a really bad decision.
You're cursing yourself, like, how could I do that? I don't know, it's a fun experience, but
it's always rough as well when you're torn between decisions.
Yeah.
I get that quite a lot on Slay the Spire. I like have to make a tough decision about like which card to go for, and then the next card reward I realized I could have had amazing synergy if I'd only taken the other one, and it can be really rough.
Oh, it's hard. It's like for that, it's like, oh, I want to like go back to save state, but like, you know, it's a roguelike. You can't do that.
Yeah. Oh man, and then the last one on my radar is Fae Farm, which is releasing on the 8th of September. And I know we had a whole thing about there being way too many indie farming games, but this one does look like it's made very, very well. The graphics are absolutely stunning. Like it really is like you stepped into like a magical fairy world, and I can see you rolling your eyes, Cal.
Yeah. I knew you were going to bring up Fae Farm.
Yes, it does look like. Yeah, it does look like every other farming. Tell you what it looks very much like to me is it looks like Disney Dreamlight Valley without the Disney, but it looks so cute and pretty, and there's cute little animals and stuff. And yeah, if you enjoy farming games and farming sims, this one is definitely one to have on your radar. And if you don't enjoy them because there's too many of them, but you enjoy some of them, like Stardew Valley, for example, great game, then this one is like a really pretty magical Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's really not that much to say about it. It's a farming game, but it's a really nice looking one that I'm probably gonna play.
Yeah, it looks like it's competently made. That's as much as I can really say about it, because what more can be said about a farming sim at this stage?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to bring anything we haven't seen before, but I like the graphics. I think that's what counts, and hope it looks like the movement's quite decent as well, which can be a big thing, because I think it was Story of Seasons, Pioneers of Olive Town had like a really awkward like aiming mechanic for trying to like dig the holes in the ground and stuff. It was very frustrating because you'd always end up standing in the wrong spot and getting the wrong thing, whereas Fae Farm looks like it's got quite good movement controls, so I have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, Story of Seasons, Harvest Moon, what it basically is done. It's been done for a long time, but they keep making them because people. I don't even know if people still buy them. But
oh yeah, they do. Because I'm in quite a few like groups, those kind of things. Like literally anything new comes out from there, they're all over it. Buying the deluxe editions, all the collector's items and everything. They've got hardcore fans for those kind of games. Like literally, they'll share like their pictures of their Switch and literally like. Farming game. Like that's all they play. They love any sort of slightly different. This one, new characters, new graphics. That's all they want for those kind of things. So I mean, I get it to a degree. I do love a good cozy farming game. But yeah, Fae Farm looks like it should be a lot of fun, and that's September 8th.
Okay,
excellent.
Well,
sounds very cozy.
I can jump in, and I'll tell you why I'm jumping in specifically, because there is a farming game or a farming ranching kind of specific game that is coming out, which I thought you would bring up. But it is quite a deep cut, so I don't know if you necessarily know if it exists or not. And so it's a game that is developed in Northern Ireland. I know the developers, and it's called Paleo Pines.
What's it called? Paleo Pines?
Paleo Pines. So it's a game basically about farming and ranching, but there's also dinosaurs.
Oh.
Oh, this looks familiar. I think I might have seen it. In fact, I've definitely seen it because I've got it on the purple sort of link bar on Google.
Yeah.
Oh, this does look great. When's it coming out?
It's coming out, I think it's this month, as far as I know.
Oh, wicked. Yeah, that's definitely one to keep an eye on then. I completely forgot about that. I'm not sure when I saw it, but I love the look of it. Yeah. I want to ride on dinosaurs. Are you kidding me?
It was a very Melika specific game.
Limited edition plushies?
Yeah,
they look adorable.
It's very much a Melika specific
your own little dinosaur sanctuary. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to keep that one on my radar.
I didn't think that would need a lot of selling, and it really didn't.
No. And it's coming to Xbox as well, which is good.
Yeah.
Although I'll say something really sad. So you guys, I mentioned before how I did the Xbox trivia last year and won like hundreds of thousands of Microsoft points for which to buy stuff. Now I was signed up for the Xbox trivia this year, but it's at the same time as the event I'm going to in Cologne, so I'm going to miss out on the FanFest trivia, and I'm not going to get the points. So I'm going to have to actually spend money on games when I want to buy them instead of just points. So it's real tough. I'm kind of heartbroken about it. Not going to lie.
Darn.
Sad life. But yeah, I was going to bring that one up just because I have that connection to the developers. I happen to know it was a very, very difficult developmental process for them.
Yeah.
Because
share the tea, spill the tea, Cal.
it's basically there's not a lot of money in Northern Ireland games development. It's like we basically have a couple of mobile games to our name, and the Peel Beyond recently came out, and that was from Northern Ireland. I think that was the first somewhat major release that's came out in quite a long time from here. We're quite limited in what we can actually put out. Paleo Pines has been in development for, I think, I knew it was a thing possibly 4, maybe 5 years ago. So it's been development for quite a long time. And it's one of those games where it's not like super complex. So there's a reason why that's taken a long time. I think there was a lot of creative differences. I think there was some sort of discussion with the artist and the owner of the studio about who actually owned the rights to like the dinosaur designs and stuff.
Okay.
There was a lot of breakdown and talks that way. So I'm glad it's coming out, and I'm glad they've actually got
it looks like they've managed to work it out, because it looks like it's been quite cleanly made based on the images.
Yeah, I hope they do okay, because you want to see your own do well, and we have precious little that come out of this country, so it's good to see.
Quite a lot in England, I think, actually.
Oh yeah,
like all England is. I think we've got quite a lot of very decent indie studios around here.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Rockstar.
I think it's the Chinese room. They did it like in the my uni's building. Like we've got the Eldon building, which is one of the sort of main sort of, I think it's for the creative industries one. But they've got like a bunch of like different tech stuff going on. I'm pretty sure that's where the Chinese room started out.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a lot of indie developers over there, and then you've got major ones as well. Like, obviously, this is Scotland, but like up in Dundee, you have Rockstar, and that's about as big as it gets. So they do all right across the pond. I think the only major one that was in Ireland, like Southern Ireland, was Havoc back in the day. I think it might have been Havoc.
I think I've heard of Havoc. What do they make?
They don't do stuff anymore, but they made stuff kind of back in the PS2, maybe into the early PS3 era.
Oh, I kind of remember Havoc, actually. I'm
gonna Google their games because the name sounds very familiar.
I'm fairly certain they were based out of Ireland, and they done stuff, and then they stopped doing stuff. And since then, I don't think there's been an awful lot of like major things coming out from around here.
I just love in Paleo Pines to see the bit where you can control like a little T-Rex, and they use them to water the crops, and they spray water. It's like, yes, I need that in my life.
It does look very cute.
It's essentially Stardew Valley, but you ride a dinosaur. But that's a good little tweak. I like that. But yeah, while you're searching around, I'll jump on to my next one.
Yeah, go for it.
Sure.
The second one, which I believe is potentially out today, if I'm right, is Wrestlequest that comes to, I think it's coming out on all platforms, but it's definitely coming to PS5. It's essentially another turn-based RPG, kind of harking back to the 90s JRPG style, but it's also a satirical take on like old school wrestling, like Hulk Hogan era, and all like Macho Man, Randy Savage.
Yeah.
The reviews are not good at all. 6 out of 10 on IGN, 4 out of 10 on GameSpot.
Oh, okay. This was purely based on me looking at it and going, "Oh, that looks fun," but obviously not. Obviously not. Well, there you go. I can't recommend it based on that, but it looked fun, and it was a good concept. I just don't think they've handled it very well in that case. Then.
I mean, the visuals look great, and it's like this looks like a fun design for a game, but
yeah, it seems like a fun satire.
It looks like it should have been promising, but yeah, people do not like it.
Okay, well there you go. That one's a failure to launch, so we'll move on.
You don't know that just because other people didn't enjoy it doesn't mean our listeners might. You never know.
Well, here's the thing: if one person doesn't like it, fine. If one outlet doesn't like it, fine. If they all don't like it, there's something going on there. But okay, we'll move on from that. The other one I have written down, and this is kind of moving into the second half of September, but it's the 17th, so it's pretty close. Lies of P is coming out, so I'm gearing up for that.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. It's just so not me.
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit. It's going to be a very Bloodborne-esque indie Dark Souls entry to that genre, and it's nice to see a couple of indies try it. Because it's pretty hard to penetrate that genre with Dark Souls and From Software knocking around. But it seems like it's a really good version of what it should be based on the demo alone. I haven't seen anything more than that.
I also like that it's sort of based on like a dark retelling of Pinocchio as well.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a like whenever it came out and people heard the name Lies of P and it was about Pinocchio, people were like, "Oh, that's going to be really bad." But then whenever you look into it and you see like, the dark grittiness of it,
it's not done in a cliche sort of cheesy way. It's done very well.
No, it's not like a little wooden puppet wandering around with a big giant
every
nose.
time you die, your nose gets bigger.
But then you could use it as a sword, and then you've got extra attack damage. You know?
Just nod your head back and forth, just whacking them with your nose sword.
If that's not a power up, I'll be really annoyed. Yeah, I don't want to give that any more time because we did talk about it at length. But that one is coming out relatively soon, so keep an eye on that. If you haven't done the demo, if you're someone that likes playing demos
as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds very much up my alley. It's like, the visuals, I love it.
It's a very JT and Callan game, that one.
And a very not Melika game.
And then there is another 3. Again, they're not huge ones, so I'm not going to give them a lot of time, but one of them is called Tenebris Pictura, and it's essentially a top-down bullet hell survival horror game. I think it's more on the bullet hell side of things, but it looks quite interesting. Whenever
none of that appeals to me.
I like bullet hell games just generally, and they can kind of be a bit hit and miss.
Visuals look impressive. They look dark and horrible and not for me, but they do look good if you're into that kind of like survival horror-esque kind of vibe.
Yeah, and I very much am. So if it's good bullet hell, then I will enjoy it because I like those things that lean into the bullet hell side of things. Like Resogun was such a good game and no one ever talks about it, and it was just like crazy bullet hell. This one kind of gave me that top-down bullet hell, similar to Dead Nation. If you've ever played that, that's a bit of an old one, but it's kind of similar to that in a lot of ways. And it also gave me Returnal vibes, weirdly. It's just
I never played Returnal, but I saw like other people playing it.
Yeah, it's just very busy. You just have to keep moving all the time. But
interesting, the screenshots for it don't really show off the bullet hell side of it. It's more focused on the survival horror. So I haven't seen the trailer, obviously. So
yeah, but whenever you're in those encounters, you're always moving. Yeah. And if you're not, you're dead. And that's what bullet hell's all about. So that could be a good one to look at. Another one, and again, I didn't look into this a lot, but it looks somewhat interesting, is a game called Somerville, which is it just kind of plays into my general likes, which is one of those dystopian walking sim sort of games.
Again, none of that sounds appealing. I have heard of it. Was this one meant to be released earlier? And it was released on supposed to be released on November 14th, 2022 by the list. In fact, it was.
Oh yeah, it's out for PC.
Yes, it's out on PC already. It must just be coming to console.
That's what it is. It's one of my typical it's on PlayStation, so I've never heard of the game. If you played that already, I apologize.
It sounded very familiar.
Yeah, so I have no idea what it is because I didn't acknowledge it at the time, but it looks interesting and it's coming to platform that I can play. So that's another one. And then finally, and I just mentioned this because I really like Dwarf Romantic, and whenever someone tries to do that, but do it a little bit differently, unlike the one that we mentioned weeks ago, which was just basically a complete ripoff, I enjoy when someone tries to like one-up something, and there's one called Land Above Sea, which looks like it's going to take the Dwarf Romantic kind of formula, but it's going to use like sea levels to kind of give it a bit more verticality and change the way that you approach the typical kind of like hexagonal puzzle build. So that could be interesting. It could also just be a rip-off of Dwarf Romantic again, so play that one by ear, but it looked a little bit interesting.
Tell you something interesting I just discovered whilst Googling. So I mentioned I was looking forward to SteamWorld Build. I didn't realize it's the same developer as Planet of Lana, which I really enjoyed. I gave quite a high review. If any of you are interested in my review for Planet of Lana, that's on the Indie Game Culture website. But yeah, that was I'm not usually about walking sims, and it doesn't advertise itself as walking sim, but it is one. But it's a very good one.
There you go. Well, that is all mine. Nothing super crazy jumping out at me apart from Liza P, which is a good bit away. I am very much consumed by all the things that are happening right now, or just in the last week. I mean, technically, Sea of Stars is not out for another week, so I would also mention that one as well, but I can't, sadly, people. So instead, JT, why don't you tell us?
Sure. Well, I'll start off with Chicken Journey, which is coming out today. It's very much in the vein of a short hike where it sounds like exactly what it is, where you play as a chicken going on a journey to find out what came first, the chicken or the egg. And
I love that.
It's very cute. You play as a chicken, and it's like you're in a town of like intelligent chickens, so it's like they're actually they have society and they have like a town hall and everything, and it's very cute, and it's very much like you're going through a little process and you're finding abilities and exploring the world more. And I played a little bit of the demo, and I thought it was very cute. One of my favorite parts about it was actually the voicing, where like the sounds of like when someone is talking. If it's like an adult hen, it's like a chicken clucking kind of sound, where it's like they make it into words where it sounds believable, and then all of the children's sounds are like chick sounds. So
that's adorable.
It was really sweet.
The screenshots look excellent. It does look like it's going to be a very good game.
It's great. It's a very cozy game, but
I definitely get these vibes.
Yeah,
I'm glad it's not a dialogue mumble, because Melika would have been all over that.
Oh no.
Can't be dealing with those kind of things.
But it seems like it'll be a very nice, cozy game, and I think I'll enjoy that. I just I don't think it'll have like too much substance. Like it won't be dealing with mature themes at all. It'll just be like short hike, where it's like if you want to play a nice, enjoyable game to wee away the hours, it'll be a good time.
For some reason, it reminds me of the game. I can't remember what it was called. It was something like Duck Race, but like it was this Flash game we used to play back in the day where you would like raise and like breed ducks to make them better at like climbing and flying and running and stuff. And they had to like try and climb up mountains and things. And it kind of reminds me of that from looking at it. And I don't know why, but it does.
Oh, that sounds very cute.
My early gaming memories are so many really bad Flash games.
Oh, I think there's just something nice about like controlling a bird, like in Short Hike in this. And it's like, I can
for
fly
sure.
now.
Yeah.
And so,
although as we know from Chicken Run, chickens can't fly.
No, can't.
Nor do they want
this
to
one can, but
I don't know it from just like general understanding of science. I know it specifically from Chicken Run. That was how I discovered they couldn't fly. Before that, I was like, wings. It does. They can fly, but apparently they can't.
I haven't watched Chicken Run in a long time. The only thing that springs to my mind is I don't want to be a pie.
Oh man, Chicken Run was like my go-to movie back in the day. I must have seen it at least 20 times, I reckon.
Oh, man. Like I watched it so much as a kid growing up, and just seeing the chickens, like even the scene where like they're in the pie factory, that always scared the heck out of me. It's like, no, don't become a pie.
I love when Rocky's sharing the bed with the sort of military dude, and he's like, "Get over, you're on my side of the bed." And the military dude's like, "The whole bed is my side of the bed." With his chair. Oh, such a good movie.
Oh, well, I'll be excited to play that game, even if it's for like the memories of Chicken Run. So that'll be a good time.
Absolutely.
Oh, and then besides that, there's Sunkenland, which is a survival crafter RPG kind of thing, kind of in the vein of Subnautica and Raft. And basically, I would describe it as like, it looks like Raft and like maybe a little bit of Rust, but mostly takes place under the water, where you build underwater bases, and I just love that element of like diving under the water, even if it's pretty overdone. I think it's so cool.
What's it called again?
It's called Sunkenland. And I'd say the one thing that like puts me a little bit on edge is that it has a lot of like kind of Far Cry-esque weapons. Like this, it looks like very much that the game is like you're on a speedboat like shooting a gun, and it's like that might take me out of it. That isn't like a very cozy game, but just the element of being able to dive under the water, I think, adds a lot to it. Because I just kept thinking in a raft, like like in the game, as you dive under the water, you're being chased by a shark, and you can see little glimpses of like the underwater society. And I was like, oh man, what if you could like dive between like underwater buildings and stuff? So I think it'll be an okay time potentially. Just I'm worried that it'll be like Rust, where it's multiplayer focused, and if you don't have a group of people you're playing with, you're not gonna have the best time.
Yeah. Subnautica is definitely the best example of that, but I could never get into it. I don't think I have thalassophobia, but at the same time, I just did not enjoy the whole idea of it's all underwater and it all happens there. I couldn't get. I like survival games like that, but I couldn't get my head around it.
That's fair.
I know what thalassophobia means, but just in case the listeners don't, maybe you can say what it means.
As long as I've got it right, it's a fear of open water.
Yeah,
that's what I already knew, but yeah, I just thought we'd clarify.
Oh gosh, forgot me in Subnautica was the giant creatures that would chase you down and try to eat you, and it wasn't mostly just seeing them chase me; it was mostly hearing their sounds, because it was always like evoked like that feeling of like, oh, there's something out there that wants me dead. It's like, oh, but yeah, Subnautica, that's a game where I really enjoyed the first half of it, but then when you have to go underground and navigate a really claustrophobic section, it's very, I don't know, grindy and like requires a lot of like prior knowledge to actually get the ending to the game. So I can understand that. For me, I like the idea of just going exploring buildings underwater. It just sounds very cool. So I'm excited to try that.
I don't know. I just kind of gravitated more towards the forest, which was all about a cave system, which was claustrophobic and really samey and really hard to navigate. So maybe that's just where we diverge.
I mean, I can understand that too. It's like, okay, that's actually, it's like very. I think just also having all the glowing creatures and stuff really adds a lot to me. It's like, oh, it's so beautiful and gorgeous and terrifying. So.
Yeah, I can't.
There was no beautiful and gorgeous in the forest.
Horror games for the terrifying sides.
Yeah, that's it. Unfortunately, that's a very big part of it. I want those games to be a little bit cozy too, so it's not all grim. And the last game that I have on the list is a kind of Vampire Survivors clone that's called X Invader, and I'd say describe it as Vampire Survivors, but more with a retro-y sci-fi action feel to it, where you're playing as a hacker trying to hack the drones in this setting. Ooh. And it looks very interesting. It leans more into like the bullet hell side of it, where it's like very much you have to like focus on dodging, so it's not as easy as Vampire Survivors.
Oh yeah, it looks very Vampire Survivor-y.
Yeah. So that looks like that'll be an interesting time. I think I'm more thinking about playing it because I've really started to enjoy Holocure, which I mentioned came out the other day. So
yeah, I remember you talking about it. Yeah.
Oh, I really loved it, and even honestly, just the fishing mini game. I've just been coming back just for that, just to the DDR. Cause I want to like beat my score and get a 70 combo. It's like, yes, I'm the best DDR player. And yeah. So I also the game looks like it has some downtime where like you can go do like some hacking stuff and talk to your friends at a local bar and stuff and hang out. And I think, as like Callum you mentioned before, it's good to have a little bit of downtime for those kind of games. Yeah. So it's not just fighting, and it gets kind of exhausting.
Yeah. I know I've already said it, but I am genuinely worried that because PlayStation gets things so late, the Vampire Survivors genre and craze will be gone by the time I actually get to play Vampire Survivors on my PlayStation. No, I think it just recently came out for Switch, so it's on the way.
I've been on Xbox for ages.
Oh, yeah. I know it just came to Switch. I assume that it was also coming to like a PS4 or PS5 and stuff.
Not that I'm aware of. We always get things devastatingly late.
Oh. Well, at the very least, I assume when that comes out, it'll have the online multiplayer and stuff because they're making that. But right now, it's just like it's a split screen co-op. So.
No, I'd imagine it will come relatively soon. Usually, the way it works with PlayStation is they don't mention it's coming, and then it just kind of appears
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
So we don't have that on Xbox. We just get the game straight away because it's the better console.
Yeah.
Oh. But yeah, that's my list. Just a cozy game, underwater game, and a very stressful hacking Vampire Survivors game on the list.
Nice.
Yeah, you can just rotate.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, guys. Well, that is our indies on the radar. When we come back, we are going to be doing some aggressive fighting one another as we are doing our tournament of indie subgenres. So stick with us. Whoop, whoop. Hello, folks, and we are back for our third and final session, the big discussion. This time, it's going to be much more interactive. There's a lot of moving parts. We are doing a tournament bracket for all of the indie subgenres, or at least most of them, all the prominent ones, all the ones that were left behind. We made a decision that we didn't have any like fight in us to actually defend their corner, and we didn't feel like we wanted to beat them down and punch down either, so they just got left out. But we have 16 subgenres that we're going to have a little battle with to see which one comes out on top and is the best indie type of game in the world. Yeah. And if you don't,
interestingly, this topic was chosen by the people in our Discord. So
it certainly
was. If you want to have a say in how our discussions go for future episodes, join the Discord.
Look at that! Look at the production going on here.
Little plug going in. Little plug. On indiegameculture.com, all our links are on there.
Oh, yeah. Well, we are going to kick things off. We are going to go through our quarterfinals. Or is it? No. Round of 16. Quarterfinals is after this.
Yeah. Round of 16 first.
This is the round of 16, and we are going to open it up with our first round, which is fighting games against indie RPGs. I am going to kick it off and say I do not like fighting games whatsoever.
We agree for once.
Oh, I'm also on the same board for this.
That's good. We can actually agree.
Oh, look at that! We got this one done so quickly.
I've even had a couple of RPGs on the back burner just in case I needed to really fight my corner. And I'll tell you what I picked. I picked Cat Quest 2 because I'm sure like it flies under the radar. But Cat Quest 2 is such an underrated RPG. It is so good. It is cute. It is fun. Everything about it is perfect. Love it. Top tier game.
Amongst others, there's Disco Elysium, there's Undertale,
I had Undertale there too, but I wanted to put in a little plug for Cat Quest 2 because like not enough people have played that.
I don't think there's an indie fighting game that's as good as Cat Quest 2.
That's the thing. Like, if I was gonna play a fighting game, this is one of the rare ones where I would go for the AAA because that's like fighting games are fun for fighting against people, and the AAAs will have just way more people to play a line against. Yeah. So.
I think that the only ones I can really think of are the ones that they're more like Smash Bros clones, and they're not even good ones. And then there's a couple of ones that spring to mind, like Them's Fighting Herds and a couple of others, but nothing to the point where I'd be like, I'm going to fight its corner.
Well, I haven't enjoyed fighting games since I was like I used to love Soul Calibur back in, I think, Soul Calibur 4 I had, and I just played so much time with that back on the PS2 or PS3, can't remember which one, I think PS2, but like, yeah. Pretty much since I was like 15, 16, I haven't touched a fighting game. It just doesn't interest me anymore. Not even Smash Bros. Like there's just so many other games I would rather be playing and having more fun doing.
I've always tried Smash Bros, but like the friends I'm playing against are always too much better than I am, so it's not fair.
How people are good at it. It's like for me, it's just button mashing. It's like how can you get good at a game like Smash Bros?
It's a real hard entry, that one, because you always end up playing against people where they hand you a controller and go, it's really easy to play, and technically it is.
Technically it is, but not if you're playing against someone who knows what they're doing. Like, it's crazy.
Yes, end up dying.
Like, easy one then. No, I think we can always agree. Let's just push RPG through.
100% RPG through the quarters.
All right, RPGs. I just think they have a like narratively richer experience, and the gameplay. It's not always the same, but the gameplay can do something interesting or neat, or just more engaging.
Fighting games are very by the book. Even when they try and push a narrative, it's weird when they try and do.
All right.
To be fair, there are some okay ones like Injustice 2 and Tekken, but they're not indies. So
yes.
But let's move on. Next one, we have traditional survival against bullet hell.
I do not have a horse in this race. I hate both of them, so I'll let you guys fight it out with each other.
I quite like both of them.
This is a hard one to pick. I think maybe. Well, okay, I have to define what we like call traditional survival. I do mean more in the sense of like the foresty, like you're surviving in a forest and have to fight off enemies and build a base and stuff. Or do we mean?
I think the forest would be right on the edge of traditional survival without going over into survival horror,
right?
Because it's more base building, it's more keeping yourself alive.
I just get so stressed with it. Like I find the issue with survival is twofold. It's like A, it's stressful because I'm close to dying and I don't want to die because I've put all these hours and hours of effort in. And B, it's also boring because there's so much downtime in survival games. It's just like wandering around looking for, I don't know, campfire to keep myself warm or a food so I don't drop dead. It's just, I tell you the one good survival game, Grounded. That's it.
Okay.
I love Grounded because I can build really cute bases and stuff. But I mean, for the most part, I just guess like another good thing about Grounded was it like there were quite regular checkpoints, so it was relatively easy to recoup everything. Whereas I feel like a lot of traditional survival games can be really harsh on you, and you lose quite a lot when you die. Whereas Grounded, you have like a base camp which you just put all your stuff in a chest and you're okay. But yeah, for the most part, I'm not a big fan. Bullet hell's just so stressful though. So I guess I'm slightly on the side of survival, but I will not fight you guys if you guys want to put bullet hell through.
Yeah, I would say bullet hell just because I do love survival games in the sense of like having this amazing world to explore. Just a really interesting concept like Raft, where it's like, okay, I have to like gather these resources, but at the same time they can get so grindy and like they require you to be pretty organized, and I am very much not a very orderly person. So just I have all my resources in different containers. I have to like go scrounge through my 8 boxes looking for those pieces of scrap metal. It's like I don't know where I put this. I thought I gathered more, but I didn't, and it just takes a lot more time, and I walk away from those experiences feeling a little bit more exhausted. Whereas bullet hells, I think I agree with you. Like it is very stressful, but there's a feeling of catharsis when like you get past the stage. And,
I'm sure.
It feels good.
I'm kind of on the fence between the two because I really like bullet hells. Like I was speaking about Resogun in the last section. It's one of my favorite bullet hells because it is just pure arcade shooter where you're just going around this map with all these particles and you're consistently like your mind is always on. You're always trying to avoid something. And there's the catharsis when you get through and you save all the little people like and it's in a Space Invader style. And you just it feels so good when you get all the things right. So for the catharsis side of things, bullet hell is great, but it is very one note in the sense that you can only really do one thing with bullet hell unless you combine it with something else. Whereas traditional survival, you can take that in so many different directions because you can lace a story into it. You can offer like all of these different survival mechanics. Like you can have a sanity system if you want to. You can have so many different building options, food, hunger, all that. You can just put it into one game and do so much with it. The only survival games that kind of pushed against that is like the ones that kind of plop you into the world, don't give you any sort of tutorial and go survive. I'm like, you need to help me a little bit.
Like those at all.
There was one that just, I know it's good, I know people like it, but I just couldn't get it, and I spent a lot of time with it. Like I spent maybe 3-4 hours trying to get on board with it, and it was Don't Starve.
Oh, Don't Starve, right?
Oh, I couldn't get past the visuals too. It just looked very gross and drab.
I mean, it was very Tim Burton-y. I was okay with it, but
yes, that's the one I played. I couldn't stand that one. I thought it was that one. Yeah, no, I played it. I tried it for a couple of hours, and I was like, no, you know what? I'd heard so many good things about it, and I just could not get into it.
It gives you nothing. It's one of those where you'd have to Wikipedia every single thing, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But
I'll tell you what, bullet hell really annoys me. Journey to the Prairie King in Stardew Valley.
No, that's actually really good. It's a really good
bullet hell game. I never beat it, and it made me so mad because I wanted to beat it and be impressive in the Stardrop Saloon, and I couldn't.
No, I did beat it. I've never beat it without dying. That is the difference. That is the trophy that will forever elude me, and it's sad. But I did beat it, and then the reward is you get the arcade machine in your heart. I was like, I want this.
Yeah. I think I did Junimo Jump, but I just could not do Journey of the Prairie King.
Yeah, it is really tough to be fair.
There's another game. I've only known about the first one. There's Junimo Jump. Which one is that in Stardew?
It's the cart rider one, yeah.
Oh, you're a little Junimo in a little minecart.
My eyes always glazed over it. I've ignored it in my 200 plus hours of Stardew.
Oh, man.
You don't get anything from it, as far as I know, outside of like getting it in your house, the same as the other one. But Journey of the Prairie King is linked to achievements that you will never get. So
it's too hard.
But to make a decision and help us move on, I'm going to pick traditional survival and side with Melika. So
okay, that's right.
I mean, like I said, I really don't care that much anyway, but it's fine.
I think they both offer their own things, but yeah, traditional survival, I will say like okay, it can have a little special some, but I like the game for bullet hells. No,
it's got more scope. That's the only reason. Yeah. But moving on, this is the one where me and Melika have a fight.
Oh boy, yeah.
So it's farming sim against walking sims.
This is hilarious because I hate walking sims and you hate farming sims.
No, that's not strictly true because I like one farming sim.
You like Stardew Valley.
I see that as like the holy grail. It's the best one. There's no other one that can even touch it. So why are people trying? That's what
let me pose something to you, Cal. Think of the best walking simulator. Can you genuinely tell me you like it more than Stardew Valley?
No.
Then surely that answers.
No, because we're talking about genres. We're not talking about specific games.
But if the genre has the potential, if the best of each one, and the best is the farming sim, clearly the potential for farming sims is greater than the potential for walking sims.
That is an argument, but also as a collective, farming sims generally are quite bad, apart from select one or two.
I feel like the issue with farming sims is that like there are a lot of them that just go with the cookie cutter thing and don't do anything differently. But also I feel like they're at a disadvantage because there are there are very well done farming sims that it's very hard to compete with, but I don't think we can discount the genre just because there are already perfection within it. If anything, I'd say that's an argument for it because there are really good options for if you can get a great experience out of a game that is in the farming sim genre, I would argue that makes it a good genre, even if, yes, there are too many options, but it also means that if you find yourself loving that genre, there are so many for you to discover and get that much enjoyment out of. Whereas walking sims can be very hit and miss because so many of them just really slow and boring.
No, your argument is good in the sense that there is potential within it and you can get a really good farming sim. And you will see another one whenever Eric Barone finishes The Haunted Chocolatier, because that will be...
It's going to be great.
But every single one that everyone else tries to make, apart from a few that have kind of scratched the itch but haven't been great, like things like Sunhaven or Coral Island or Potion Permit's another one that I quite liked, but they were never great and they never do anything like that pushes the envelope like Stardew Valley does. And it's because he took Harvest Moon and he made it better. That's all he had to do. No one else has decided to take Stardew Valley and make it better. They've effectively dumbed it down, and they will continue to do that. And that's why the genre,
they might not continue to dumb it down. They might continue to make it good. Like, I think there is so much potential for it. Like, okay, this isn't an indie game, but Disney Dreamlight Valley did a lot with it, which clearly shows there is more scope for it. And I think indie developers, you know, if they put the time in, they can make games that good, and I think they will. I think there is a lot of potential for farming sims, and I think it's one of the most like easy, calming, relaxing games possible to play. Like, if you've had like a sort of long, busy day and you also want to sit down and game and you don't want to be bored, you want to be engaged, but you just don't want to be stressed out, farming sims are perfect for that because they're so engaging. You can easily just spend a few hours on them, just fully immersing yourself in that world. Whereas with a walking sim, like a couple of hours feels like it's been 10 hours. It just takes so long and drag on. Whereas farming sims, you're going to get so much peaceful, easy enjoyment, just unwind.
Well, listen, I think this might be a losing battle, so let JT come in because I think he's going to fight your corner anyway.
Honestly, it's really fun hearing you go back and forth. It's like, oh, that's a good point. Well, that's a good point too. Okay, I will say I love Stardew Valley. I think that it's a very cozy, fun game, and I think it's interesting when you have different games, like we discussed the dinosaur game that like brings interesting elements into it. But I will say those games are also a massive time sink, and they don't really build to a point. You get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm done playing with the game now. There isn't always an ending to it. And I will concede, like, I think walking sims, they can be boring, but they generally like have a stronger narrative, or they have a climactic part that I can walk away from this game saying like, oh, that was an interesting story. And I played about a lot of bad walking sims, but I think that just being able to walk away from the game saying like, oh, that was an interesting experience, and it's more like quality for your time. And yeah, maybe I was a little bit bored, and I think there's also walking sims, like you look at Pathologic too. It's like, oh, that was like it's a walking sim, but it has some elements of like RPGs thrown into it too. So I think Stardew Valley is good, but I think I'll have to pick walking sims just because it can have a little bit more to it.
I feel like you're penalizing farming sims for having more content. How is more content and you can spend more time enjoying the game being a bad thing?
I just think that they can be a little bit bloated. I like my games that are like a nice cozy box of 5 hours. Like I can play it, I'm done with it. I don't have to keep playing until like the crack of dawn.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got through that and I won.
Yes.
Now we have a kind of hotly contested one.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So it is platformers against open worlds.
I'm on the side of platformers for two reasons. One, I just generally enjoy platformers more because I feel like there's more to do. I feel like open world exploration games can often have sort of vast expanses of nothing really happening. But the main thing for me is that because the main thing that separates an indie game from a AAA game is budget and people working on it. And I just do not think that indie games can invest as much time and money in creating a good open world exploration as AAAs. And I just think, you know, if you're going to play an open world exploration, you want it to be a really vast, full world. And there just isn't the scope to create that effectively with an indie publisher. Whereas with platformers, it's all about creating intense, interesting gameplay. And there's so much more scope for that because it's not going to take as much time. It's not going to require as much manpower. So I feel like the best open world games, yes, probably are better than the best platformers, but you're not going to get them in the indie sphere. It's going to be stuff like Zelda Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, whatever. Like, you're going to want the AAA games for an open world exploration game. Whereas with platformers, I find actually the indie games often have more charm. They often push the boat a bit more. Like, I feel the AAAs are a lot more cookie cutter, whereas the indie games are like, okay, what new mechanics can we try? So yeah, I would definitely say that platform is the way to go for this one.
No, I am very much on the fence between the two. It's very hard for me to decide between them because I love them both. However, I would disagree with what you said to defend open worlds and give them a fair shout, because if you give me a pocket-sized open world, I will tend to like it a lot more than a 500-hour slog open world with so much to do that I become overwhelmed. I have played the first 5 hours of The Witcher like 20 times. I'll never play that game in full because just it gets to a point where I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm meant to do next. There's so many things on the map. I'm done. I'm just going to go play something else. I have never had that with an open world indie game where I played, like some of them aren't amazing. Like Sable, I had my problems with it, but I thought it was fantastic. But the thing that kind of I'm going to put my whole argument on is the best open world that I've ever played, and that is The Outer Wilds, which is
it's a decent
game. I would say it's the best open world experience.
It's a very good game. I've had.
So I'm literally going to set that out there, and that's my entire argument.
I disagree with you, but I do respect where you're coming from. I do definitely see where you're coming from in that one. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I can love platformers, but they can also be very challenging. And yeah, I love like some accessibility features. Like in Celeste, there's the bit where you can have a helper that shows you where to go, where it shows you your path. But I will say, okay, I agree that like open worlds can be fairly big, but I love like the tiny, more pocket-sized ones, as Callum's saying. Like I think what really stands out to me is what I just played is a short hike, where it was a very small open world, but it was very like all the characters well written, and there's always something fun to see, and it was worth like talking to this person and going on this boat ride. And
I would also like. Oh yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, go ahead, Melika.
I was going to say, I would also like to say there's a big distinction for me between a 2D platform and a 3D platform, and I feel like the 3D ones often have a lot more to give. So, for example, Tinykin, absolutely fantastic platform because it created such a unique dynamic by the fact that you could, yes, climb the platform, but you could also summon all the different like little creatures and stuff to do various things. Another great one I played was It Takes Two, which I guess is kind of on the border between AAA and indie, but technically was put under the indie for the Game of the Year category, so I'm counting it. But that one was like, the fact that it managed to create a platform experience where you needed that second person to fully complete it. And I think that's where platformers like really open up, is when you do push the boundaries of what the mechanics can do. And I think 3D platformers just offer so much more scope for that. So I would like to say, yeah, when I'm saying platformers, I'm pretty much exclusively saying 3D platformers, because although 2Ds definitely do their place, I think 3Ds just offer so many more different gameplay mechanic options. And that's where I think they definitely get the boost over open world, is the fact that there's just so much you can play around with, create a really refined experience.
I think the only thing that would edge it for me on the platformer side is if you look at it as a collective and look at the ones that have like pushed the boat out collectively within open world, there's very few, whereas with platformers there's definitely more of them that have done that. There are also more of them that have done a really poor job of platforming.
Well, of course, yeah, like I think that's the thing, like there's a lot more bad platformers, but there's also so many really good ones. And I'll tell you another one that really flies under the radar is Max the Curse of Brotherhood. And in that one you have like a magic pen where you can like draw in extra stuff to create extra platforms to go further, and it's another unique mechanic that I hadn't really seen before. And I feel like there are so many platformer games where I've played it and I'm like, I've never seen that done before. And yeah, I just think there's so much potential, so much still to discover. I'm sure there'll be so many new mechanics even in the next couple of years, and pretty much coming from indie games, because like I said, the AAAs don't tend to push the boat out as much. So I think that I just really support indie platforms.
Yeah, I will add on to that point. I think in terms of interesting mechanics, there's another game called Ultimate Chicken Horse, where you play as like a small little creature and you build an obstacle course, and you're trying to make the course as hard as it can be, but also like easy enough for you to get past. So
yeah, it's basically amazing. Like competitive Mario Maker.
It is, yes.
That's brilliant.
And it's great because like you make these like elaborate traps, and you're all like little animal creatures, and it's like you can get electrified, lit on fire, or thrown to spikes. And
I'll definitely have to check that one out. That sounds awesome.
A very good party game.
It's a great time with friends. And oh gosh, I'm very split on that. Because I can really love both, but I can also really despise certain platformers that are just too hard. Or Getting Over It comes to mind. I don't know if would that count as a platformer, but
terrible. Well, I would never count a game like Getting Over It as representing the genre. I think when we're fighting the genre, we should pick sort of like the better ones, sort of like the good examples of what the genre could and should be.
All right.
Unless you're fighting against it, in which case you do want to bring this up.
I guess the biggest question, would a short hike count as a platformer, like more of a 3D platformer, or an open world exploration game?
It's kind of a bit of both. I would thought more of an open world because that's literally the format, but it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
This is a hard one to decide on. Okay, I was gonna say open world, but now I'm thinking more about Ultimate Chicken Horse and having fun with friends. So I'm gonna have to lead on the side of platformers now.
Okay, cool. It's nice to have the decision taken away from me. I'm happy with either, to be honest. But yeah, platformer wins. Moving to the other side of the board, we have horror against roguelike or roguelite. You can have either.
Yeah, I'm going roguelites because I much prefer roguelites. And yes, I'm going roguelite. You guys know I'm not brave enough for horror, but also I just love how when a roguelite is done properly, each run just feels so completely different, and you can spend hours and hours and hours into the same game and have a totally different experience. So some of my favorite ones, obviously, as I discussed, love Slay the Spire. I think it's incredible. Also, Hades, like that's just. Yes, it's got like the fighting game elements, but the roguelite elements is what makes it different. Like if it was just a fighting game where you did the same thing every time, it'd be so boring. But it's the fact that each run you can like unlock, and you can get keys to unlock new abilities. You can get like darkness to get upgrade your mirror abilities. You can like collect things to gift to other characters, and then they'll give you like relics, which you can then use to improve your runs. And like even each death will inspire like new story elements. Like you can talk to the characters and learn more about the lore. And like that is just such a great example of where the roguelite ability just absolutely elevated the game to just incredible status. Another one I really like that's a little less known is Undermine, and it's very typical like roguelite formula. You know, you go in your dungeons, you fight the battles, collect money, and then do it all again. But I think the relics or like whatever that each game's like version of those is what will decide if it's good or if it's not, because you can create such good synergy with your abilities by collecting different relics. And I love that aspect of like really hoping to get one that works with another one I've got. I feel there's that element of excitement with roguelites. Like you never know what's going to happen on this run. You get excited. You go like, is this going to be the one? You get to learn new techniques. You get to upgrade your abilities. So each time you feel closer and closer and closer to getting it. And yeah, I just think they just offer so much potential for replayability, like pretty much more than any other genre. I would say roguelites offer the best replayability, and roguelites can be very good. I'm not brave enough to play them because I like each run to feel very different. I like each run to feel like I'm going further. I don't like dying over and over and over again. Like roguelites can be very satisfying if you want to just keep trying and finally beat it. Whereas for me, I prefer roguelites so that I'm getting a boost each time I die, so it feels a bit more achievable. But yeah, I just think there's so much replayability value, so much excitement. I love discovering when I start a new roguelite. I love discovering what the different elements are in there, like what different things can I buy, what can I unlock. And that's another thing. I love that you unlock stuff. I feel like back in the olden days of gaming, I feel like there were so many games where you would like unlock stuff as you played, whereas nowadays there's so much like pay to play stuff where you can either start with absolutely everything or you start with nothing and have to buy each thing. And I love that roguelites give you the ability to unlock it. For the King, another fantastic roguelite. You like collect lore, which will unlock new cards and stuff you can discover in your future games. And yeah, like I just love the fact that you unlock stuff. Each run really feels like progress. It makes you determined to play again. You say, oh, just one more run because now I've got this new unlocked ability and this could make or break it for me. And yeah, I just think roguelites are pretty much the best genre.
Okay, well, I'll jump in there.
Yeah, I know you're going to fight me on this. I wanted to set a strong argument for them because I love them.
It is a strong argument, and there are a lot of roguelike and roguelike games that I do like. Now, they are kind of the holy grail of the genre, like your Inscriptions, your Binding of Isaacs, what was I going to say as well? Hades as well. Like, they are kind of the ones that I would go, okay, that's a good argument. I like those. But I just feel like, for me anyway, roguelites are pulled down with two things. They are very much one note in the sense of what they want to do. They want to consistently give you that little cookie every time you do something. I don't necessarily need that.
Give me my cookie.
Yeah. It's fine to an extent, but it means that you have to do that consistently throughout the entire game or it burns out. And there's a lot of roguelike games that just want to be a roguelike because it's popular and they don't know how to do it very well. And I've played a lot of crap roguelites and I'm a little bit resentful of the entire genre as a result. I don't have that same feeling with horror games because, one, I think they have a lot more scope in terms of what they can do. I have a lot of love for the indie horror scene because I like horror as a genre, just as a collective. And there was a period there between maybe 2010 to 2018, maybe. Maybe my dates are slightly off, but there was a period there where horror just died a death, and the only thing that was propping it up was indie horror, because the AAAs just decided there's no major flagship horrors that are going to hold us up anymore. Resident Evil was doing its whole sci-fi thing. No one particularly liked that. Dead Space was gone. Silent Hill was on hiatus. Like there was nothing that was really there that they could bank on. Indie games filled that slot for a long time, and now the AAAs are picking up again.
Well, I'll definitely give you that indies definitely are a real, like, they definitely stand out in the horror genre. I just wouldn't say that the horror genre stands out against other indie subgenres. I just think it's a weaker genre in general.
It can be at times, because the only thing that would be an argument against horror in the indie scene for me is there is the whole Amnesia Dark Descent thing, which essentially bleeds into a lot of what the indies that came after, where you're just in a dark place, you have a flashlight, you're running through claustrophobic corridors, you're searching for batteries everywhere. It becomes the same thing time and time again. But the ones that try and do something different, they do it very well. And sometimes you have to go for the real deep cuts to get good things out of the horror genre when it comes to indies. Like I recently done a list on them, and there's like one that me and JT were talking about off camera called Lost in Vivo that I reminded myself when I was like, oh, no one knows what that is, but it's an incredible game.
Oh, it's great. Oh god, it still scares me where like there's one enemy that like it goes after you through walls, and you can hear this awful sound, and you see it like appearing through the wall. It's like, oh,
that sounds really scary.
It's terrifying, that game, and it's not very graphically good, like, at all. Like if you even watch the opening 30 seconds of the game, there's like a little corgi that you're walking, and it just kind of bounces, almost like the people in South Park move, that kind of style. So there's not a lot of work that's been done that way, but they still create this really claustrophobic, tense atmosphere, and it's really good. And you can only get that from indies, because AAAs are super polished and you know what they're doing, and they don't necessarily get horror right all the time. Like, you even seen that whenever the guys that made Dead Space went over to the Callisto Protocol and done a pretty poor job of it. So it happens.
Yeah. This is a really hard pick, because there are some roguelikes I really like, and I've spent probably 1,000+ hours or a couple 1,000+ hours on, like, all of them together, like Binding of Isaac, Dead Cells, and Inscription, and a couple others. But at the same time, I feel like I can have sometimes a more fulfilling experience from horror games, and even if they aren't like as replayable in some sections, because once the monster comes out and says boo, then you're gonna be prepared for it the next time. But at the same time, I think walking away with a more fulfilling experience that feels better for me. And I was gonna say roguelikes, but then I thought about more like Lost in Vivo, and I was like, oh, that was a genuinely terrifying experience. So I think.
Come on, JT, roguelikes. Let's go.
I'm sorry, Melika, but I think I have to go
with
horror.
Hey.
Oh, JT, how could you do this to me?
Oh, it's a strong subgenre, but I need a little scare or something frightening to just.
You guys disappoint me.
Oh, no.
You're consistently losing. It's fun to see. Has to be said. But yeah, we will move on hastily. This is one that maybe be a little bit lukewarm by comparison. It is puzzle games against kart racers.
Are any of you planning to argue for kart racers?
Oh, I'm absolutely not. You go ahead.
No, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like we're all very close, very clear on puzzles here, right? Like, yeah. I cannot think of a single good indie kart racer.
No.
Again, it's not a kart racer, and I know you both didn't like it, but I did enjoy the boat scene in A Short Hike. I think I had a good time with it. What can I say?
But no, I think let's just save our puzzle arguments for the next bracket. Yeah. Because I feel like it's very clear sweep on puzzle here.
Yeah, I can't even think of an indie kart racer now that I think about it.
Yeah.
No,
I only know one because I played it to review, and it's really niche. It's called like Motor Racer GP, and it's like a little Wrestlequest game. It's not good. It's very good for achievements though, because you don't actually have to race. You can literally just press A to start the race. It will just go through it, and you just get an achievement for each track. There's only like 25 tracks, and that's it. So you can get all the achievements by idling for like 10 minutes.
You're speaking my language. Well, we'll move on quickly there.
Let's just skip it.
We'll move on. This one, I know I'm going to lose this fight, but go ahead. Metroidvanias against sports games.
I mean, what sports games are you putting out there, Callum?
So my whole argument rests on kind of the extreme sports games. So I really
you like the skating games.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm basing my entire argument on the fact that I don't necessarily like Metroidvanias. I've established that in the first section. I've decided that I'm going to distance myself from them from now on. So there are some ones that I like. I liked Rogue Legacy was kind of like that. Hollow Knight's another one that's kind of like that. There's a few that I have a small bit of love for, but I'm basing it all on pretty much Roller Drum because I thought it was such a fantastic arcade shooter roller skating game. And there are a couple of other ones that are kind of in that ballpark in terms of sports like Ollie Ollie World. There's a couple of indie skating games like Session and Skater XL. And a few others that I'm probably forgetting, but they are the ones that I'm banking my whole argument on. But I feel I'm going to get rinsed pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, I used to enjoy sports games in general, not like indie, because there wasn't really much of an indie game scene on the PS2, but like that was when I enjoyed sport. I'll tell you my favorite sports game as a kid. It was Barbie roller skating. It was like you could like customize your different roller skates to your outfits. I used to love that one. I was also big on Tony Hawk's. But like nowadays, I just don't get the fun of sports games at all. Whereas now this is an interesting one. I think you think I like Metroidvanias more than I do, Callum, and I very much like the premise of Metroidvanias. The problem is I have like no navigational skills and I get lost too easily. So for example, I love Ori. It is beautiful, it is heartwarming, the movement is superb. I have never finished either of the Ori games because I just get lost. I try. I look at the map because I feel like Metroidvanias are the worst for walkthroughs as well because you can't just like say, oh yeah, it's in this one. It's like, okay, so you go here and you go right and you go down and you go left. I just get lost. I just cannot follow a walkthrough. I cannot follow the game. I literally, the only reason I completed Hollow Knight was because I played it on stream and there were literally people in my Twitch chat telling me exactly where to go. So like, I do enjoy Metroidvanias. I will not be able to finish most of them because I will get lost, but I still think there is a lot of potential for them. I think it's very much a me issue because I have got bad navigation, but I think if people are competent again at directing themselves, there's so much fun that can be had from Metroidvania. It's so exciting to come across a door that you can't open and then come back to it like a couple of hours later because you've unlocked like a new ability, and it's like finding new abilities, deciding which ones are going to be useful for which section. There's often like bosses involved, and yeah, I just think there's a lot of fun that can come from Metroidvanias. There are some really good ones. Obviously you got Hollow Knight, like you said, Ori, like I said, and I haven't played it yet, but the Curious Case of Benedict Fox, I think it's called, looks like it's very good.
I've heard that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like that. I'm probably mixing it up with other things, but yeah. I mean,
if you can be won over, I can keep naming nice ones like Rock.
Oh, no, there's no winning. I'm definitely going for Metroidvania for this. Yeah, there's no winning over. I'm afraid, Cal. JT, drive it home.
I think it's pretty obvious that Metroidvanias are my bread and butter. If you've heard me talk about them before, I just love Hollow Knight so much. It's still my second favorite game of all time, and I don't know, just the feeling of exploration and finding this cool, like quirky world, and I don't know, just like the feeling of mastery for some of the combat in these games, where it's like you can walk away from it like feeling very like, oh, well, like I can come back to it and I'm like as good as I was, and the game's actually much easier for it. I will say though, actually, it's kind of interesting you brought that up with Ori, Melika, because I actually kind of despise some of that game. I think it looks amazing. It's beautiful. I love the story,
Ori,
but I could not get over the gameplay. I was so bad at it for navigating the world.
It moves so smoothly.
I guess it might have just been a me issue where I could not control the little fox guy as he was flying about. And
do you use like a mouse for yours?
No, I used the controller, but I just...
You do use a controller?
Yeah, I just wasn't very good at it. That was like the one Metroidvania I've never been able to
get over. I was the opposite. Ori I found like very easy to control. Like the platforming elements from Ori, because you obviously have those sections where you have like dodge past the spikes and stuff.
Right.
I was always really good at those because I found the movement on it was really smooth. So it's interesting you have that.
I always like there were some of the sections where like you had to fling yourself multiple times, and I always messed that up, and I have to do it over and over again, and it would take me 20 minutes.
I quite like challenges like that. That goes into what I enjoy from platformers. I really enjoy those sort of like tricky elements. They get fun.
I would just walk away from it feeling so frustrated, and just I'd say like, yo, this is a beautiful game. I will not finish it out of spite.
Fair enough.
Because I'm going to get
finished Hollow Knight and decided Ori was too hard. Because Hollow Knight's so much harder than Ori. But I guess from the platforming perspective, Ori's harder than Hollow Knight, so I guess that's why.
It's mostly
that's interesting. Because like for me, it's like I don't like too much hard combat, which is obviously what Hollow Knight brings. That's interesting. But still, I think we can both agree that Metroidvanias are better than sports games.
Yeah, and I've seen that comment. Well, do you know what? Just to kind of give it an all-around thing, I can see the argument, and I also would say that if we could limit it to Metroidvania games that are Metroidvania games and something else, I could almost get on side. Like things like what's the name? Yoku's Island Express.
Oh, that's good. I forgot that counted as Metroidvania. Yeah,
Which
I love Yoku's Island
it's a
Express.
Metroidvania pinball game.
It's a pinball Metroidvania, and it's so easy to not get lost. It's a very clear map. It's quite small. Yes, Yoku's Island Express is brilliant.
Yeah. If we see it through that lens. And then there was the Night Witch as well that I quite liked. It was like a bullet hell Metroidvania. I liked it too. So yeah, I technically give it so there we go. And then we're on to the last one, which is text-based against RTS. And I am very much on the side of text-based because I hate RTS. Go ahead.
See, this is an interesting one. I don't really play much RTS. Most of my RTS experience comes from mobile games, but I really like tower defense, and that is why when I'm talking about RTS, I'm talking exclusively tower defense. I don't like any of the other sort of like more combat and war-based RTS games. I just like, here's a path. Make sure the enemies don't get to the end of it. Go nuts. Like Bloons tower defense was like absolutely my bread and butter as a teenager, and it still is nowadays. It's like I've got like 8 games on my phone, and 2 of them are variations of Bloons tower defense. I love unlocking the new towers. I love learning which towers are best against which enemies, deciding exactly where to place them to optimize them, which upgrades are best when. It's very exciting. I just really enjoy it. Another great one is Mushroom Wars 2. I played that on Xbox, and that's got a really fun online thing. Also, the great thing about that is that most people suck because they don't play with enough strategy. And there's so much strategy in Mushroom Wars 2 that isn't outwardly apparent. Like, it seems quite simple, but there's actually quite a lot of different stuff you can do. So I was very good at that game, and I got all the achievements real quick, and it made me happy. But yeah, no, I like real-time strategy for that. With text-based adventure, it's one of those things where I want to like it, because literally the only game I've ever developed was like a very sort of small, short, contained game for a game jam, and that was a text-based adventure. I enjoyed creating. I have full respect for it because like it's so hard creating all the different branches and stuff. Like it does take a lot of time. Like my game was really short and had like 10,000 words in it just for that short game. So full respect for them. I just find that they're just not as exciting as the non-text-based. Like the only reason I did a text-based adventure is I don't have the coding experience to make it any other way. So I just feel like there's not any text-based adventure that couldn't work exactly the same with like moving around as an RPG. I feel like most text-based adventures work very well as an RPG is my main feeling with them. And yeah, I just don't want to be sitting there reading when I could be playing.
Well, I'll jump in because I'm very much one-sided. I like text-based adventures simply because they are like little interactive books. I am one of those people that really struggle to actually sit down and read a book because I feel like I need to be doing something. I'm one of those iPad kids where I need to have something on a screen, but also hear something in my ears, but also have something in my hands. So read into that and diagnose what you will. But that's how I feel when it comes to text-based. At least it's scratching that edge where you're interacting with something on the screen. You have your own dialogue entries, and you can consistently build your own story, which is fun. Whereas with RTS, I am very much, I'm okay with text-based, or not text-based, turn-based, where you give me the time to think of my move, give me all the time in the world, and I will eventually do it. If you give me something like, and I like this game, but equally I find it very frustrating for this reason, Faster Than Light, where you have something happening on screen and you have these people coming through and bursting in the door and you have to react to it in real time and try and strategize. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. Yeah,
it makes you feel so good when you get it right. It makes you feel really smart. That's why I like real-time strategy games. They make me feel so smart.
No, I just get immediately overwhelmed. I'm like, I just kind of like freeze up. And
that is valid. That's definitely valid.
It's not for me. But text-based, I feel like there's such a rich vein of text. I
want to enjoy text-based a lot more than I do. I just don't really have the patience for them. Like I think, like I said, I think they're cool, but for me, most of them I just feel like I would just prefer them as an RPG.
You have the graphic novels, which are visual novels.
I really don't like visual novels. I have no patience for them at all. Like I need to be doing something, just because like visual novels, I don't even get why they're games. It's like just make a movie. Like it's like they hardly ever have like anything going on. You sit there and like maybe every 20 minutes you'll make like 1 or 2 dialogue decisions. And like I respect them as an art form. I don't respect them as games.
Yeah,
Like
generally, I
I've
feel
played
that
some
way.
decent visual novels that I've enjoyed as an experience, but it's like it doesn't feel like it. For example, Caffeine, Victoria's Legacy is a very good one, but there's just like any visual novel, there's just not enough stuff to do. I like doing stuff, and that's my main issue with text-based adventures. Like I just feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I want to be, if I'm playing a game, I want to be constantly stimulated.
Yeah, well, I mean, my argument that's going to sway it either way is, well, one, I hate RTS, but secondly, there are a lot of really good text-based games, and the one that I played this year, Norco, is the one that's kind of holding it up on its own.
I bring that up too.
I definitely see that. Like I'm not like strongly opposed to them or anything. It's more of a case of I know myself well enough to know that I don't have the patience for them, but I do sort of like respect them.
Yeah, and you like Coffee Talk as well.
Yeah,
I like the first one.
Yeah,
decisions.
All right.
How about you, JT?
Yeah, I really love Norco, and there's another text-based adventure game, Road Warden, that I really loved. And even though like I can get kind of bored of some visual novel games, and sometimes I'll enjoy them if I'm patient enough, but I had such a good time with Road Warden that I think that would have to sway me on the genre. Like, sure, I love RTS games, and I played way too much StarCraft 2 as a kid, but I haven't played a very lot of RTS indie games. Like I do love Faster Than Light, but most of the game is just me just spamming spacebar and like making a bunch of decisions. So I feel like that's not really real-time strategy. I'm just like pausing and putting everything where it needs to be.
I don't love the genre or anything, so I'm happy to take the loss on this one.
Yeah. Also,
it's more just I only really play them if I'm bored and like I don't have internet, so I just play it on my phone. To be honest.
To its defense, there was one really good RTS game I played called Frostpunk, where you play.
Oh yeah, I heard of that one.
Yeah, you're managing a British city in like an alternate 1880s, I think, and like in the Arctic, and the world has been hit by like global cooling, and you're just like making some horrible decisions to survive. And it really peaks in the very last like 10-15 minutes of the game because a horrible storm hits and it wipes out maybe a third or 2/3 of your colony, and you're just struggling to survive and you're panicking, and then you make it through and you're so spent through it. It's like, oh, that was a good experience. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of the RTS games come down to like, I don't know, managing a city or a settlement, and I feel like that just, I never walk away from those experiences feeling very good or excited. And yeah, text-based adventures, I've only played a couple of them, but the couple I played are really good. But yeah, I would just say visual novels, not so much for those, but yeah, Road Warden and Norco were very good experiences that I was just like, I like the. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said fair enough.
Yeah, no,
makes sense.
I just like the experience of like it's a choose your own adventure, and it's like, okay, I'm reading the story, I'm in the story, and I can choose to help this person, and this has an impact on the ending of the story. And I always feel really involved with those games, like narratively, and it feels really good.
Oh, I also forgot about A Dark Room, which is an old Flash game, but it's text-based. And if you've never played it, I'd let you kind of just check it out. It's literally just a black and white text screen that kind of builds up a.
Very familiar to me.
That sounds kind of interesting.
It's something you should give maybe an hour or two of your time to. You can still play it as a Flash game.
I played it back in the day. When was it released? It was
like
ago, right?
15, 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, 2013. Yeah, I think I did play it. Looks very familiar.
I need to write that down for myself because I want to do it later.
It's not something that's like super mechanical in it, but it's the way it evolves from nothing to what it is it's very cool. But yeah, text-based wins, and we're moving into the quarterfinals. Here we go. So we are moving over to the left-hand side of the board, and it is RPGs against traditional survival games. Off we go.
I'm definitely on the side of RPGs for this one.
Like,
are either you guys not on the side of RPG?
RPGs are just too strong, I think. I feel like it's going to take something else to.
Okay, let's push through RPGs then, I guess.
RPGs with another no contest.
No contest at all.
To the defense of RPGs, there's very few like indie RPGs that don't like hit the nail on the head and get it right. There's a lot of kind of bad traditional survival games that pull down all of the good ones. So it's a no contest. Yeah. Moving on quickly, we have walking sims against platformers.
Right, I'm definitely on the side of right. I'll tell you exactly my issue here. I feel like most walking sims rely on some platforming to make them less boring. So I think if they're going to try and draw from the opponents, try and make themselves less boring, they've already lost. So I'm 100% team platformer here.
I can understand why you're on that side. It's a terrible argument because no walking sims ever use platforming.
Some of them, it's like I suppose it depends on how you just like. on how you define a walking sim. I feel like some of them, like it's like, oh, let's go up this obstacle, or look, there's something to do apart from just walk in a straight direction. So
yeah, they try and implement
very minor platforming, but like, yeah, I feel like they use some form of like elevation to make themselves less boring, whereas platforming gives you the elevations right from the off, and you get the fun parts out of the boring walking parts.
But it's usually not platforming. It's usually something like a gimmick. It's
well,
not.
I haven't played many of them, to be fair. All the ones I've played.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I actually I enjoy platformers a little bit more in the sense that it's like I have a little bit more fun with that.
No, I've seen that come. I do as well. Yeah. Like I'm not fighting the corner of walking simulators. I know you probably thought that, but I'm not that bad. They are good. They have their place. I really enjoy them. I probably enjoy them more than most people, but they're not platformers. Like platformers are always going to win that fight.
Always.
So we'll quickly move on.
Bye-bye, walking sims. Get out of here.
You mean walk out of here?
Very good. Very good. We are moving on. So it's going to be horror games against puzzle games, which is a pretty close one in my head.
How is it close? Puzzle is so much better. Puzzle, oh my god, Puzzle's like a B top tier. Like, now you've knocked out roguelites. Puzzles are the ones I am fighting for. Because, like, they just bring so much, like, immersion into a game, because you get so focused on wanting to complete that puzzle, you forget everything that's going on around you, and it's all about discovering, like, what can I do differently, how can I work it out? And there's so many brilliant ones. Like, I'll tell you one that I really loved, Escape Academy. It was like a series of like different escape rooms you could unlock and stuff, and I feel like the fact that you can just do that through a game. And also Omno, absolutely beautiful, so clever the way that the puzzles were integrated into the story and the gameplay. It's just absolutely brilliant. Like, it's a puzzle platformer. It's a puzzle platformer, so it counts. Like, I feel like the puzzles in it are very good, and I think indie games especially do such a great job of creating sort of new and unseen puzzles that you haven't really seen before in other games. There's so many, like, I like literally every time I play a new puzzle game, there's always going to be something that jumps out at me. Like, I've never done something like that before. I think there's so much potential for creating something different. Whereas with horror games, it's like you're going to walk and you're going to get scared. You know what's coming. Whereas puzzles, there's so much variety. Each one is going to be so different. Whereas I feel with horror, you played one, you played them all.
No, I don't think that's necessarily true.
Okay, I'm exaggerating it a bit, but puzzles are going to have so much more variety.
I am very much on the fence with this one. I'm struggling because I like a lot of puzzle games. I am more inclined to play more idle puzzle games that require less thinking, but it's a consistent thing. Like Dwarf Romantic is something I really enjoy, because it's just you turn your brain off and you just play it, and there's no real cognitive thing going on there. You're just doing it and doing what makes sense. But I like complex puzzle games as well. But the problem with the more complex ones is you get some that are real standout ones that will kind of stand the test time, and then you get a lot of ones that just kind of fall to the wayside, and they are quite lukewarm by comparison. So you get things like probably the best example is like the Talos Principle or the Witness, which kind of stand above the rest. It's like, that is a super cognitive puzzle, does everything wonderfully, has its own mechanics, and you remember it forever as like, what an amazing puzzle game. But then you have other ones like, for example, Viewfinder that I just played that rely on these gimmicks, don't do them particularly well, and they just kind of fall to the wayside and you forget about them. Same thing with like Superliminal, same thing with like a couple of others as well. I
think some of them can definitely be super gimmicky, but I think other ones, just like that actually commit to the mechanics rather than the gimmick of it, can be really cool.
So the reason why this is the one thing I'm going to push out and say, would you class this as a puzzle game? Because I would. If you do, then it may make the difference. So I think Return of the Obra Dinn is potentially a puzzle game, because it is very much deduction, and you're trying to piece together an entire narrative kind of that happened before, and it's all told through tableaus, and it feels very puzzly. It's kind of detective-y.
It's listed under the puzzle genre, so I think it counts.
Would Papers, Please in that sense also count? I assume that wouldn't, but then like they're kind of
I will go to Google for you. Papers, Please is a puzzle game.
Wow. Well,
Lucas Pope really turning it around. Yeah, I mean, I think puzzle games probably have a bit more scope. I do like horror games, but I feel because you can approach puzzle games in two different ways, you have those complex ones like Oberdin, like The Witness, that do those really interesting things and push the envelope. And even though there are some like lesser ones, there are enough good ones to keep the genre ticking. And then you also have those passive ones like Dorfromantic, and Unpacking is another one that's just like things happen, you're not really thinking, you're just doing, and I like those as well. So I probably would just be on the side of puzzles and no more.
Oh yeah, now that I'm thinking about Oberdin, I'm like definitely on the side of puzzlers now.
Yes, let's go.
I don't know, I think like walking away from some of the more interesting like puzzles where you just, like really think about it is that can be more engaging, where there's a lot of horror games that have pretty bad puzzles where you just go to the thing, get the thing, and open the door, and just find the key. And I think
I like the interesting differences.
Yeah, and I think I like the feeling in puzzle games where it makes you feel smart, or it's like, oh, I didn't think about this way. But one gripe with it is that there are some games where the puzzles are too hard and I have to look up a wall through, and that's like, that's the worst part of it. It's like, oh, well, now I feel dumb because the solution was that easy.
Yeah, that's just part and parcel of the genre. That's what happened.
Okay, well, we've got to an agreement on this one. That's good.
Yeah, we'll miss you, horror, but you're gone. Goodbye. So we're moving on to the final quarterfinal, which is text-based against Metroidvania. I am on the side of text-based by default, but you two go ahead.
On the side of Metroidvania, JT.
I just love Metroidvania so much. I can't not pick that.
I don't think either of us are backing down from this one, I'm afraid, Cal.
I love text-based adventures, but I don't love them enough to like disregard Hollow Knight and Blasphemous and some of these other games.
Like I said, I respect it. I would not choose to play it. And Metroidvanias, I just think there's so much more potential for them. I think they do a lot more. And like even though I rarely finish them because I get lost, I think they are great games for a great genre. Actually, I might play tactically here because if I say text-based, then puzzles only up against text-based.
No.
Actually, no, it's okay because Cal hates Metroidvania, so I can lose anyway. Okay, yeah, Metroidvania, let's go. I'm thinking forward.
Yeah, I mean, I really love text-based games. I would vote for them by default. I want to give them their time and say that they deserve a lot better than this. But my professional critical head that goes into making reviews and doing various other things knows Metroidvanias are better. It's one of those things. Right. So we are moving on to the semi-finals, just the final four.
Go!
We have RPGs against platformers. Big one.
This is a tricky one. I know I'm going to lose, but I am going to stay on the side of platformers because I just really love 3D platformers. I love running around and collecting things. I think RPGs are an excellent genre, and I'm more than happy to lose to them. But like New Super Lucky's Tale, beautiful, Tinykin. So many great platformers that come from like there's good AAA platformers, but I just feel indies have such charm in the platformer thing. And yeah, I just think there's always something new, something exciting. I will pretty much try any new indie platformer that comes out as long as it's made well. Like I won't try the sort of like really cheapy, let's just get a game out so we can get some money ones. But if there's like a sort of a new 3D platform in the indie game genre, I'm always happy to check it out. And even the bad ones, I even like KO the Kangaroo, and that shows just how much I love platformers. Because if I can get enjoyment out of a game as poorly made as KO, then that is a genre that I will always defend. But yeah, I know it's not going any further, so knock me out of the water, guys.
Well, for me, it's a lot closer than you might think because like the best side of platforming, I really enjoy. Like Celeste is one of the ones that I absolutely adore. There's a number of others that are very, very strong. The thing that kind of puts me on the side of RPGs, it's not like a foregone conclusion. It's a very slight thing, but it's just because there are very few bad indie RPGs and there are so many strong ones. Whereas with platformers, you have your bad ones, and I like the bad ones because they're just like you play them and they're grand and they just kind of keep you busy. But with RPGs, you're always getting something, at least in the indie scene, that is made with love and passion, and there's a story to it. There's so many moving parts.
Me feel guilty because like some of them I don't like. You can tell they're made with passion, but the story just sucks and is boring. It's like I can clearly tell someone's put their heart and soul into this, but I hate it. Your heart and soul sucks. Get out of here. So I would definitely disagree with there being bad RPGs, but I would say even the bad ones, I feel bad for finding them bad because I can at least appreciate the effort and love that's gone into them. Whereas with platformers, if they're bad, it's usually due to laziness. So
if it was just RPGs that we were talking about and we were comparing them against platformers, I would probably say platformers. But the reason why I'm picking RPGs is because CRPGs exist and they are so strong. You have things like Disco Elysium, you have things like Wasteland, and you have things like Pillars of Eternity, and so many other ones that are so strong. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
I like I said, I accept defeat on this one.
I'm so sorry, but there's some construction happening outside of my house. Do you mind if I close the window and come back in just a second?
Of course.
Thanks.
We can talk smack about him until he comes back.
JT's so there. He's like always there, and you're like, want to make your podcast, and he's just like sat.
Yeah, he's so lovely and polite.
Okay.
Like, oh, how dare he exist and be nice and stuff. Hey, JT, we definitely want to talk smack about you behind your back.
What?
We weren't. We were. Cal was like, let's talk smack, and neither of us could think of anything bad to say.
I was just like, lovely and polite. I get it.
Oh, the worst things are the Discord calls where you can't see if someone is away or if they're coming back. So then they come back to it and you're not talking for 6. You get to hear them like saying what they're saying. And I was like,
right. All right. Let's kick off from you giving your team argument.
Well, I love RPGs. Again, if that wasn't obvious, I love the ability for them. The stories just make me so happy and sad, and just the ability to make them make me cry, like turning to a sobbing mess. I'm just so impressed with that. And
I love RPGs too, so I'm more than happy for them to go through to the final. I think they do deserve it.
Yeah, I think platformers, they can be good, but like the gameplay is, I think, can almost be a little bit better sometimes. But still, I prefer RPGs. They're just
like I said, platformers have my heart, but RPGs, I think I can definitely see them as being the better genre. Platformers are a very much a me thing, I think. I love them, but I can also see that RPGs probably do appeal to more people.
No, I just want to check, because this will irritate, not me, but potentially the audience. Are you putting them through on the strength of RPGs, or putting them through on the strength of RPG Maker games? Because that's what I think it is.
No, it's like just like the potential of what a good RPG can be. I would say
it's very much RPG Maker games are winning.
I knew it
for me. I was like, oh, dang, he knows. Oh.
It's your decision. It's your vote.
Yeah, it's very much Undertale, Amori, One Shot. Those kind of games, just they ruin me, and I love it.
Fair enough. I just wanted to get that clarification.
I was like, oh no, he's digging it out. That's
because we're coming from two very different places, and we got to the same destination. But yeah, we're moving over to the other side, and we have puzzles against Metroidvanias.
Now, you hate Metroidvanias, right, Cal?
I am very much on the side of puzzles.
Yes, I'm also on the side of puzzle.
No. My first loss. I'll stick it to Metroidvania.
I think if I was better at navigation, I might have a better connection to Metroidvanias. But my experience of Metroidvanias is a really fun first 2 or 3 hours, followed by a very frustrating 10 hours of just constantly getting lost and just going back and forth on the same path. And there's nothing to collect. I've always collected everything. Yeah. So, whereas puzzles, they always give me something new to look forward to, something exciting. So, yeah, I'm putting puzzles through.
Melika,
what I will say is... go ahead.
You just have to equip Wayward Compass and Hollow Knight, and the game's fine. That's all you have to do.
I have the compass. I still get lost. JT, you do not understand how bad I am at navigation, okay? Like, I am... It takes me a few, like, even in a new area, it would take me a few weeks to, like, memorize, like, even a 5-10 minute journey. Okay, I am not good at navigation. I had to use my Google Maps to get to my uni lectures for, like, the good first term or so.
All right, well, fair enough. I can understand that.
I was going to visualize for the listener my views on puzzle against Metroidvania specifically, because it's not incredibly far away, the two. I can respect Metroidvanias, and that's why I would kind of give them a fair shout. Puzzles are obviously going to win, but they both give me dread. The two genres both give me dread in very different ways. Metroidvanias give me dread, and this was something I experienced whenever I was reviewing Blasphemous 2. I was like, finishing aspects of it, going away from it, and going, I really don't want to go back to that, like, at all. Because it's punishing, it's horrible. I can't really navigate particularly well. The combat, I feel, is limited compared to so many other things. Just and it gives me dread. I don't want to go back. Puzzles, it's purely down to my shortcomings, and that's fine. Because I'm like, I couldn't beat that last time because my brain's not smart enough, and that's fine. My brain will get there. So that is the core difference.
Oh no, Hollow Knight. I'm so
sorry.
sorry.
I'm sorry, JT. Had to be
Oh,
done.
it's fair.
It was a hard fought thing, but we are into the final round, and it is
exciting
RPGs against puzzle games. Who thought puzzle games would get into the final?
Me, I did. I had a dream, and I wanted to commit to it.
There you go. It's a tough final. Not really in my head.
I know. RPG was always going to win it, but I was still firmly on the side of puzzles. I think they offer so much excitement, so much enjoyment. They make you feel so good about yourself when you like figure it out. And if you don't figure it out, there's always a guide that's really easy to follow. Like puzzle games have the best guides because it's very just do this, then do this, then do this. It's so clear, it's so efficient. And then once you've got the one you can't do out the way, you can move on to new ones that you can do. There's always something new to discover that will just make you feel proud and accomplished. And I love puzzles. There's always something new, a fun new mechanic, and now you guys can just blow them out of the water. Just break my heart. Go on.
It is again. It's not a million miles away from me. I think RPGs, just because of the extreme scope that they have, and it is purely down to the CRPGs once again. Because from an RPG side, like there are things like Undertale, which is nice. Like I don't gush over it like some people do, but I like it. Eastward is another one. There's a couple of other RPGs. Like I mean,
I just realized something. Cassette Beasts is technically an RPG.
I suppose it is, yeah.
Okay, I feel a lot better about this loss now. I like Cassette Beasts.
Right, and Cassette Beasts is an RPG. I was about to say. And obviously I can't speak about it, but Sea of Stars is another one, and I can't give my views on that, but I mean it's definitely part of the conversation. I say that. There's so many good examples of traditional RPGs, but they aren't really the ones that are kind of guiding me here. See, it's the CRPGs and mostly Disco Elysium.
Yes, Disco Elysium wins it.
It's such a strong such a strong CRPG, and up until very, very recently, it has been called the best RPG ever, the best CRPG by a country mile, and I'm very interested to see how good Baldur's Gate 3 is, because I resent the idea that it's better.
I don't think it's better in like the way I enjoy it, to be honest. It is quite good, but Disco Elysium, the good moments in it are so good, and just you can be such an awful person. I love it, and
it's how I would frame it of how good it is, and it's through my wife. So Ella is someone that hates narrative in games to the point where she gets really annoyed unless there's some sort of tactile thing happening all the time. If there is text on the screen, she will hate it. If there is something going on that she has to engage with that is not an action, she will hate it. And she sat
I can appreciate that.
You're actually very similar in terms of the way
I'm not that bad. I do like cutscenes in my games, but I never used to. I used to always skip them, but then I played a few that had unskippable, and I slowly got accepting of them being there. And I like reading about the story. I just don't want that to be the only thing. Like, for example, I love Spiritfarer, but that's because you also get to do stuff. I don't like games where you don't get to do stuff.
Yeah, well, she's very much, I need to be consistently doing stuff, and the story happens alongside that, fine, but I want to be doing it. So
I like her. She's cool.
she liked Horizon because a lot of the story happens whilst you are doing platforming or killing a dinosaur, and it happens whilst you're doing it. If a cutscene happened and she had to watch it, she'd be like, well, I know what she does. She immediately takes out her phone, goes on to TikTok, and waits for it to be done. That's what she does. So my argument lies on the fact that she, after a discussion about Baldur's Gate with a couple of friends, she was like, oh, it actually sounds really interesting. I think just through osmosis, she was like, oh, the fact that there's so many branching narratives and fun things, you've really sold me on that. And I was like, well, it's not out until the 2nd of September, but you know what is available? And I floated the idea of Disco Elysium, which I have done several times, but this time it finally landed. And she sat down and she has played about an hour and a half of it. And do you know what? She's asked me to play it again. She'll only play it in my presence.
Wow.
And she really enjoys it.
Fair. Maybe I should try Disco Elysium then.
Oh, it's just so well written. It's so funny.
I might eventually play it. I'm not committing to anything.
The only thing,
your thoughts, Melika.
The only thing that would be a drawback for someone that maybe doesn't like to engage with all that text is it does have these little pockets that gets really, really dense all of a sudden, where it tries to amalgamate you with all of this history with Revachol and the.
I do like learning lore if I'm already invested in a game. I will say.
Yes. Well, if you are invested, there's plenty of it to go around, and then there's also a lot of politics involved. So it gets very deep into these political structures of like communism and fascism, and the game actually really hates if you're a centralist. Like it just despises you, not
mocks you.
Like making a decision, cowards.
The achievement is most laughable centrist. I think.
Yeah. If you don't take a stand, the game is like, oh, you suck.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say you're also RPGs, JT.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. I also want to add for Disco Elysium. I think it's better than Baldur's Gate 3, but just because there's some moments like in Baldur's Gate 3, you can do this one route called the Dark Origin, where you play and you let all of the intrusive thoughts in your head control what you do. So basically, you're an evil, murdering monster, and you rip off people's arms, you kick squirrels, and you're just a very awful guy. And it's very much all of those bits are like put into Disco Elysium, but like it's taken up a notch, and you're very you're just a lot more of a failure, and it's very funny and sad. And
that is just the Disco Elysium experience. It's just punctuated by anger and fury and silliness and obscene weird things.
I mean, one of the most dangerous scenes of the game is sitting down in an uncomfortable chair, and you can die of a heart attack, like from 3 moments in the conversation.
Oh, I was going to say, if I'm on the topic now, I can say this as well. Ella, I thought this was going to absolutely ruin my pitch for Disco Elysium. She got through the opening scene, and she decided to build a character that was more of a thinker than a physical character, so she had 1 point of health. I was like, that's a bad idea, but you can do it anyway. You might want to reconsider that whenever it goes wrong, which it inevitably will. I have never died quicker than whenever you try to run out of the hotel and have the heart attack whilst like flipping the bird to the innkeeper. That's the earliest I've died. She died taking the fan or taking the tie off the fan. Which is
what?
That's the earliest point you can die. That's amazing.
Yeah. You wake up in the hotel room and you're like naked in like a hangover and a stupor. You wake up and you have to clothe yourself, and there's a tie hanging on like the rotating fan.
Did she like cut her finger on it or something?
So she touched the bulb, or and basically
died. It's too bright. That's and it's hilarious. Like, and then you lose a point of health.
Oh,
and man. She died.
Yeah, she died. And I just pissed myself off.
That is hilarious.
It was so funny. I was like, it's so funny, I can't help myself but laugh, but this might really wreck her. She'd be like, well, I'm not playing it now. Like,
oh, man.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good. It was genuinely one of the best things. And it's also been really fun watching her, because I get to see her make all these decisions that I would not make. Despite the fact I've played that game 4 or 5 times with the intention of role-playing as someone different, I never end up doing it. So it's fun to watch.
I want to pick the crazy options. I want to be a monster, or just a person that doesn't belong in society.
Yeah. Agent of Chaos.
Yeah. But yeah, in case it wasn't obvious, I love RPGs way too much, because RPG Maker games, CRPGs like Disco Elysium, and like, you know, a lot of the quirky, even like text-based adventure RPGs, where just there's some like element to it that has a very strong narrative. It does something really silly and fun, and you know, the gameplay can be interesting. I don't know if the gameplay is always really good, but sometimes like when it's good, it's good. So
no, I think it's a very, very worthy winner. And I guess we have a winner now.
Yeah. We do. We have a winner, and it is in
Disco Elysium.
It is
Disco Elysium. Fair enough. I think it's a very good genre. I'm very happy for it to win. Wouldn't be my top choice, but it'd be my top 4. Top 4.
No, RPGs are a great winner, right? I think like I could already see it from the beginning. It's like, yeah, that's probably gonna make it to the end.
Interestingly, Callum, what would your number 1 have been from the round of 16?
Oh my goodness. I feel like RPG would have probably been it.
Fair enough.
Potentially open world would have also been up there, because I really like Outer Wilds, and I think it's a strong component as well.
For me, it would have been roguelike.
That's a terrible winner.
I love it. I knew it was never going to win. I was hoping to get to the quarters at least, but no, I fully expected RPG to win, and I'm very happy with it to win. So yeah, I think we made a good decision there.
Yeah.
Well done, everybody.
Oh, gosh,
no, if you Oh,
Sorry.
go.
Oh, I can't think of any other stronger ones besides Metroidvanias because I love Metroidvanias, and I was shocked they didn't make it to the end. I was like, what? No.
Yeah. You just happened to have me, which was always going to pull it down. But yeah, that is our winner, which is Indie RPGs. If you feel differently and you want to let us know, you can come and join us on the Indie Game Culture Discord. You can access that via the Indie Game Culture website, and you can join us there, have a conversation with us, debate with us. I'll argue with you. I might swear sometimes. It just depends what day you catch me. But yeah, if you want to tell us what your favorite indies are, you can let us know there. We also have socials. We have YouTube channels. We have Facebooks and TikToks and Twitters or X if you prefer, and you're a bit of an edgelord, whatever you want. But yeah, that has been the Indie Game Culture podcast. When we come back, we will have so much more for you. But until then, say goodbye.
Bye.
See you, everybody.